All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Daniel Boone Area School District Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. It is 5:30, and we'll call the meeting to order. For the agenda, we haven't, sadly, an agenda wasn't posted online. Really, this meeting is to discuss some of the items we've been discussing all year, and for the past maybe year and a half, but haven't really tied up firmly. This morning, Mr. Martino and I went to the high school and saw a presentation by Mr. McKnight revolving around his strategic plan for the high school. And after some discussion with Mrs. Torsha and Mrs. Kiesel, I decided it would be good to have that presentation shown tonight because I believe it will address many of the issues that we are looking to tie up. So, with that being said, in terms of public participation, if you have a comment, we have a really small turnout tonight, so feel free to raise your hand and we'll try to call on you. Then, I guess we can move on to the presentation if you're ready.
And before you do, Preston, let me just, for Carol and Dave's sake, this is what I put the email out about, and when he gets to the curriculum portion of it. What I was saying in the email that Connor and I told him, go ahead and do it because we can always go backwards instead of forward. So, Preston, when you get to, you know what I'm talking about, when you get there, make sure they understand.
Additionally, it might be best in the interest of time to wait until the end for questions, unless there's something, I guess, so,
sure.
Like, you got to get an answer then.
Do you guys mind if I stand?
No, not at all.
Move around a little better
Not at all,
off being
absolutely.
sitting.
Yeah, I think otherwise I might fall asleep.
No, I'll use some proximity to keep you going. So, as you will see, you'll always see that it's there'll be discussion purposes. This is a presentation for you guys to look at some in the 10 days or so, 8 days or somewhere in there that I've been to the high school. I've been able to do a lot of analysis early because I felt coming in, you know, there's really about a third of the year left or so, that there had to be some analysis done to make, there's always, any job you go into, there's always some things that can be tweaked early. And so I wanted to look for those things and then take the longer time period, you know, about a year really to get to the meaty issues, you know, and really do the deeper analysis. So you'll see some pieces in the strategic plan that are broad reflections and broad pieces going forward about where we'd like to go. And then we'll get into your opinions and thoughts about some of the pieces that we could adjust. Everything is for discussion purposes only at this point, and you guys will, I'll provide options, and Megan will provide options with you. And you guys say, yeah, we like that, we don't like that, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I know that people are very in tune to the mission and what we're trying to achieve here for kids with fiscal responsibility, but maximizing their opportunity, really. When you boil that all down, that says to me, how do we maximize the learning opportunity for kids? That's really where we're at. So at the core belief of what we're trying to do at the high school are these 3 points. Now, for those who were with me in the interview process, these are familiar. This is what I believe. At my core, all students can grow. Our mission ought to be to maximize the potential for all students, and 100% students will be eligible for selective post-secondary opportunities. Now, in the past, what that meant to me was best college. What it now means to me as I've matured is there are a lot of opportunities that are not necessarily for four-year institutions. But what we should be asking ourselves at the end of their experience through the K-12 system, and specifically in this case through the high school system, is if we have students who are interested in being in the military, do we prepare them so fundamentally well that once they get through their basic training, that they're people that the military identifies for special forces or special opportunities within there? So examples like that. Can our kids get in the best and brightest opportunities like there's a school for those of you who are into the trades called the Apprentice School in Newport News, Virginia. Selective to get into, competitive to get into. You're not getting in there with basic skills math. You're going to have algebra. You're going to have high algebra trig to do that. The days of basic skills elements are gone for kids, and we ought to understand that regardless of what field you go into. So that's what I mean by selective post-secondary. Our vision of the future, we're going to talk about two pieces here. Where we are for the high school, and then the high school as the educational hub for the entire community. What does it mean for the community? I'm not going to spend a lot here today. We can come back and visit this more. I really want to spend more on this side and the direct piece for students. But again, just re-illustrating the concepts and ideas that I had originally said.
Your public is just increased by some students.
Hi guys. And are these the better part of family members?
One of them is yes.
Which one is Congressman? How are you? And your name?
Oh, really? This is Trisha.
So, okay, our vision of the future, again, re-emphasizing it. And these things are being done, okay? This is not like we're reinventing the wheel. This is happening out in Pennsylvania. We'll go down to Nashville for one piece, but the top left is Masterman, which is a select magnet school in Philadelphia, where kids average around 1,400 on their SATs, okay? Most people now are familiar with Downingtown STEM and what STEM does. And I know we have a big STEAM initiative going on at the high school, and as I've tried to dig in and differentiate on the STEAM, I don't see where the art piece is happening in STEAM. We have a lot of good art things happening, but I don't see the art piece happening. And so STEM got politicized, and that's how the A got in. It became a political issue because art didn't want to be left behind, so they kind of piggybacked in there. Not in our district, across the country. Mechanicsburg is a school district very similar to Daniel Boone in terms of size, in terms of economic disadvantage level, around 22-24% in the population. A little more racial diversity than we have, but they grow kids better than anybody in the state. Talk about SPP type growth, kids where you get them and how far you can grow them. So they're just like us. I mean, so it's doable. And then the issue of academies in Nashville, My Future, My Way, talks to choice for kids. You know, there's been a lot of research about what motivates students and teachers and all of us. And the number one thing that motivates us is choice. And that's not opinion, that's research-based. So very nice little transition for you. How do we get to our desired future? If our desired future over here is 100% eligible for that piece, how do we get there? Well, right here's where we are. Okay, 88% are graduating the 4-year cohort. Most students are growing. And we kind of do our work in a kind of born-on-date model, is what I like to refer to it. Grade 9 to 12, and how do you get in 9th grade and 10th grade? Well, the year you were born, and you progress through the system. It's not based on really your skill set, okay? Some kids grow faster than other kids. So how are we honoring that ability to grow faster, or if you don't grow as fast? So those are some of the things that we're going to dive into here shortly. On this educational hub piece, right now we may have low community awareness at the high school, modest community participation, and we're not making probably any money from events that we do, and I don't mean like the sporting events. So how do we get to high community awareness, high community participation, and making some money in a revenue-based model? So I will jump back into that piece, but not in a major way today. So how do we do it? Well, the rigorous, relevant, and consistent academic program. When you look at our work that's ahead of us, we have to have that piece in play first. If we don't have that piece in play, we're not really able to go farther. Enhance diverse growth opportunities for students, and then finally equitable access for all students. How do we make sure every kid gets a shot at their piece of the dream and what they want to do? So here's what we have. Right now what we're looking at having discussions about is building universal academic programming that's rigorous, relevant, consistent from -9 grade to +12 grade, okay, or 12 plus. What does that mean? When they get to us in 9th grade out of Jenny's school, not every kid is on grade level. And when she gets them coming in, they're not on grade level. So what do we do about that? That's the part about equitable access and growing all students. What do we do for kids who are really ready when they're in 10th grade? They're already at the 12th grade level academically. They're able to do calc or a lot of AP courses. Right now, I can tell you what we do. We do senior release, okay, which we should really re-examine and talk about as a group of people if that's really the best practice. There are ways to do senior release that could be productive, but right now, there's not really a criteria to it. So it's a deeper, more complex issue that we should revisit. Not that we should cancel it, but how we put the criteria to it. So, curriculum mapping. So as I'm meeting with department chairs, and I've met with the Keystone, what I call Keystoneable groups as a team. I've met with every department chair. One's here. So had conversations about a number of things about where they are, where they'd like to go, and what does that look like. Now I know that Mr. Henkel had done a 5-year vision, and I read that and you sent me that note, and I'm assuming it was the same piece that you were talking about that I have. Okay, so in that document there were a lot of very interesting courses and things, but what I couldn't discern from that document was how it was a vision. It was a list of activities and things to do, and what if we did all those things, what did it deliver? I couldn't tell what we would get if we did those things. So to me, what I'm saying is that when we do the things we're all going to talk about going forward, we're going to get this. Okay, we have an end state. That's what, and we certainly can debate if we think those are the right end states. You know, if anyone on the board, central administration thinks we ought to look at it differently, we can do that. So, Curriculum mapping, I'm having a hard time laying my hand on really viable live curriculum maps that people are using. I had one group tell me that really they have curriculum, but it's really their textbook. I will share with you guys, textbook is not curriculum. Okay, textbook is a tool to deliver curriculum. So we'll have to do some work there for sure. Curriculum review and refresh, instructional effectiveness. I know that this team from Mary Beth down has moved to a model on EATS, which is essential question, activating strategies, teaching strategies, and summarization. And that's in play now. So now it's our job as an administrative team to make sure we're in classrooms frequently, seeing it in action through the walkthrough model. And if teachers need some help and support, we should do that. What kind of student assessments are we using to see if kids are growing? School-based data teams to look at that information a little bit, and then students' well-being. How are we measuring some of those pieces? Enhanced diversity and growth opportunities, creating secondary pathways for kids to be highly motivated and highly interested after they meet their basic requirements academically. Early college access. One of the programs that I'm familiar with, Wilkes University offers an engineering program that they will partner. You have to send your teachers, they get, so to speak, certified by Wilkes. Kids can then be taught at home in our building, end up upon graduation with about 45 credits in engineering. And direct admittance into Wilkes. So there's a lot of interesting possibilities to deliver on early college access, not the least of dual enrollment, AP, pieces like that. And that really speaks to our plus 13th year, plus 14th year for kids when they've already kind of accelerated themselves through our curriculum. What do we do for them? How do we keep them engaged? And obviously you can save a lot of money if you leave high school with 45 credits. If you leave with 15, we were telling a story earlier today, my son, and he's just an average student. He's not some superstar, trust me. We fight all the time at home. But he's now at Penn State. He 15 credits, dual enrollment and AP. Well, that was $12,000 in our pocket. I mean, they took all the credits at Penn State. I like having that money. It's a big help. When I was at Schuylkill Valley, I forget the young man's name, but he was either the valedictorian or the salutatorian, and he graduated with 45 credits. So it's doable out there for sure. To develop strengths and interests of our students, also how are we doing that athletically with the arts, extracurricular, and that to me helps deliver on that future state and that future vision. Access to all, what are our transition programs? We have all these little pieces floating around. They haven't been coalesced, at least that I could find in the high school, to standard operating procedures, or partnered with the middle school, transitioning back and forth across the lane, so to speak. So here, transition programs, you will have transition for special ed kids. I'm talking about transition for every student. I mean, how in my experience, we've come across situations where we ran a summer program for anybody at will, not summer school, but a summer program. We called it a bridge program. And we had teachers and guidance counselors identify some kids who they thought were academically somewhat deficient, but the kids, it wasn't summer school, they didn't have to come. And also, that may have anxiety. Parents could self-report, students could self-report that they wanted to go to this program. We had some high-flying straight A type kids. I was surprised that they showed up in the program. They were scared to come to the high school. They were afraid as they were leaving 8th and going to 9th. They just had anxiety about it. They went through the 4-week program that we set up, and they did very well. I mean, we tracked the data. We saw that out of the transition of those 25 students, 24 were above their grade point average in 8th grade in the first quarter of 9th grade, which was a successful transition. ELA, or English Language Support. Credit recovery, we spend a ton of time as high schools looking back and how do we get kids credits who fail courses, but we don't do that much looking forward. How do we accelerate their learning and their support? And then re-engagement programs. Now re-engagement, I'm not talking just about dropout or truancy. I'm talking about you have kids sometimes coming through the middle school, they're heavily involved, they're interested, they're excited about it. They do all kinds of activities in the middle school. They get to high school and they start to fade away. And next thing you know, by 11th grade, they're no longer doing anything at the school except coming and doing their academics. How do we get them re-engaged? So building and designing program. And I said this morning that each of these bullets represents a vast amount of work for teams. But this is how we begin to put the standard operating procedures together and have a system that outlives all of us and that we hand on to the next group of leaders to take and run with and build upon, as opposed to the system crumbling down when we move into retirement or whatever we choose to do. Educational hub piece, very quickly, does it support our foundation? Does it draw the community towards us? Does it deepen community ties and connections? So we've had a good deal of conversation about connecting our community, the board, other community groups. So you will be receiving Did we not have this conversation from the art department, an invitation to, you know, I don't know, I can't say wine. So we had to do like sparkling juice and cheese event, and we want to have an exclusive presentation of the art program, private showing to the board only. So you'll be getting that piece going forward from that group. You know, we're engaged in the music department to do a string quartet piece. You know, I want to change the feel when you walk in that building. And it's not bad now, I'm not saying it's bad, but we can make it special. And so that's really the idea. And we can make it special for free, which is really good because our kids are always looking for chances to perform, correct? We hear that issue. You know, when we had the bus cut back, which I was not here for football and the band going away, well, big issue is they didn't get to perform their show. But we can find other ways for kids to perform. So if you're doing a string quartet when you come in the building, that's a chance for kids to perform. They can perform in our cafeteria in front of their peers. We'll see if they want to. But we can develop those opportunities for kids. This issue here of after-school enrichment programs, developmental club and team activities are programmatic things that as we have had to be more fiscally lean, we can write grants for. And I've always had this piece where there's no cut policy. Every kid should be able to be in something if they want to be in something. The challenge is funding it. There are grants out there, and we're accessing some of them. I've talked to Shelley Mikowski about this. She has some access to some opportunities for the district in the wellness grant, where we can offer kids, if they were going to be cut from a program, we can now run, not an intramural program, but a developmental program, 2 days a week. Let's say it's basketball. Get an advisor. And you know what? As a coach, and I coached for 30 years, there were 9th grade kids that I've had that, I use this, they couldn't walk and chew gum. They just were not very coordinated kids. They were not very athletic. But they ended up playing for me in 12th grade, right? I mean, they just did. They got better. They matured. Whatever happens to kids over that time period. So to turn our backs on that and have them disappear in 9th grade is a mistake. So we owe it to them to find a way. So.
Yeah, I needed you when I was in 9th grade because I had problems with walking in.
There you go. So, but then by 12th grade, you were doing
No.
No. Blazer Summer, where we evolve and this is actually a revenue producer, we will evolve an entire summer camp programming model. Parents are looking for care in the summer, so to speak. You have kids and coaches, and I've talked to Michelle Goss about how we can do this. You set it up, you run, for example, just as an example, let's say you have the band camp piece going the first half, you have a place for the kids to eat lunch and be supervised. The second half of the day, they might go over with the tennis coach for the rest of the day. Parents pick them up at 4 o'clock, you have a full day. And of course, you charge, it's not free, and now you've made money. I think the first place we did it, the first year, we raised $24,000 additionally into however the board chose to invest and put it in play. This year, it's on track for $60,000 revenue. And that's paying an extraordinary amount to the teacher contract for that hour rate. So, it's pretty good. Adult education, how do we bring the adults back onto our campus to have an educational experience? I don't mean like GED classes. I mean like, what were we talking about, Richard? What's that? Computer skills, and there's a host of things, high interest things that adults could do, and we can partner with colleges, and just getting a positive vibe about what we do. So I'm not going to spend any more on the educational hub, but that's kind of the flavor of that. So I'll jump ahead. Now, here's what I see currently in the high school. There are tons and tons of random acts of improvement. There's a lot of good work going on in that building, whether, how much you guys get the opportunity because of your schedules to get in there or not, but you read about it all the time in the paper. I've seen tons. I went to the academic challenge, greatness there. I was at SEUS. That was terrific to see that, and the charity-based piece of that. I read at the board meeting, and Mrs. Torsha brings up, there's a lot of good things going on. The part of our work is how do we get it from looking at these hours that are good to hours that are aligned and moving forward collectively as a group of people. Because that's really what our work is about as a board team and an administrative team. How do we do this and make it highly efficient and effective? And guys, the issue here now we're looking at and we're saying, here's where we are. Oops, that's where we are. 84% four-year cohort graduation rate. And this is where the state goes off the rails a little bit, in my opinion. They will measure your growth, your cohort rate growth in 4 years. Well, I would never want to see our rate be 100%. There are special ed students who stay till they're 21. I'm not sure how some of these other districts actually report out 100%. Because the cohort is when you start 9th grade, where are you in 4 years? And we know that there are kids with severe and profound needs that should not be leaving us before. Now, it's not 12%. I grant you that. So how do we get over here to 98% and then a 6-year cohort rate of 100 and tracking it? How do we pull some of those things, forward? So here's how we do it. Here's the outline. We aspire to be, what is our mission, what's our value, and we collectively come to an understanding as a team. This is what we are about. This is what the board believes, this is what the administration believes, this is what the community, this is who we are, okay? This is what Boone is, okay? Our values, our beliefs, okay? Our vision for the future. Where are we now? I'm having a hard time laying my hands on where are we? I mean, trying to figure out where are we in the statuses. We see these random collections of pieces, but we don't know specifically how deep we are and where we are. What are the community demographics? We do know that. Student outcomes, not really identifiable outside of the keystones. You have to do that to graduate. We want to meet the SPP to be looking like we're moving forward, but you talk to anybody in education, talk to these guys over on this side or in the back, nobody got into education to make kids proficient on a state test. It's something we must manage for sure, but nobody's passionate about that. No one's enthralled about that. We're in it all for different reasons that are more inspirational than that. What are our outcomes? And then what are the other indicators, the metrics, the indices that we would use to say, yes, we are reaching that goal that we talked about, the 100% growth and maximizing student potential. So where will we be in 5 years? And we set benchmarks along the way. Are we making it? Aren't we making it? Do we take corrective adjustment, corrective action? How do we get there? What are the key strategies and initiatives? What are the key success factors? So there's a whole bunch of, there's a science for those of you who've worked in business, more so than education. There's a whole science on implementation, planning, and strategy and metrics. And so we need to use those, okay? And we need to identify collectively as a team what they are. And then we need to present them to you guys and say, hey, here's what we think. Here's what we think. What do you think? Okay, do you think this is the right path? Are we where we want to go as a group? How do we gauge our progress? We talked about implementation, student outcomes, other indicators, but the plan, do, study, act cycle is often missing. What I've seen in public education my entire career, 25 years, is tons of activities. Kind of going back to the 5-year vision piece I talked about in that book, there's a lot of activities in there. I don't know if they'll deliver what we want them to deliver. We kind of feel like they might. But so there's all these activities we throw up against the wall, and you'll see in education, people constantly changing every couple of years, well, that didn't get us where we wanted to go. We didn't monitor it, we didn't adjust it, we didn't grow it, we didn't train it, we didn't restaff it, on and on and on it goes. So we have a plan to do that. Here's the timeline. I think I changed the dates correctly, gentlemen. Thanks for that catch earlier today. Here's where I'm at, and Megan and our team at the high school right now. I had Bruce McGregor, I have Shelly and Michelle. That's the 5 people who meet on this plan and begin to look at some of these things and where are we. So we're collecting data and analysis where we can, or putting pieces together that can begin to collect data. Okay? This is the piece that we need to build out going forward. And that will be some of the things we're going to talk about tonight in terms of the schedule. And then going forward in a longer way about how we connect to some pathways and some high motivational, high interest pieces for students and teachers. And then we start to build out plans that once we have this in play, you can get your diversity, and when I say diverse, I mean diverse growth opportunities for all students. How would you get access to all students with all needs? Get the staff, student, community feedback on these pieces through surveying usually. Customer satisfaction model surveying, is the school working for you? What do you like about it? Gallup, and it's free, does a whole series on surveying and really looking at hope. The hopefulness of students, of community, on teachers, and it ties into all these education pieces, and then they do the analysis for free, and they compare your data against schools near you and then across the country. How are your kids hopeful? Do they believe what we're doing can work for them? So more on that. Building, like I said, the metrics. So at the high school, we have teacher leaders. Now, not department chairs, although they may be leaders. I'm talking about how you develop leadership amongst the team in the high school, and that leadership is sometimes viewed as a life sentence. I'm not talking about you do it in a project manager style. We're on this project, you're the lead person, you train them to do that, and you have that engaged. And then when that's done, their turn is over, and you then develop some other students, and you then have a exponential development of leadership in your school, and then you have a lot of teacher leaders, and that's really what you want. So this is what we're looking at. We have our bi-weekly meetings, and we assign homework out of those meetings on these given topics, and they come back in 2 weeks, and they say, here's where we are, this is what we're doing, and you keep that conversation going. That's the work that our team at the building has to do and organize. So here's year 1 in the operational timeline, and I think, Dave, you may have seen this. This goes back even to the interview process and looking at these pieces. So from the time I've been hired, okay, we're doing the analysis on these pieces here, and obviously it's not all done. For sure it's not. Scheduling, looking at the scheduling issue, and this brought up an issue today in the meeting that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. Summer programming, we're probably not going to make much movement on that. We'll still be at the credit recovery level this summer, but going forward by next summer we'll begin to implement some pieces. And maybe we'll get some of the camp type stuff more centralized. I know the thing came up about band camp the other night at the meeting, and I don't know much about that, but just hearing that if we can become systemic would be good. Opening the year, identifying teacher leaders, training them, and then how do we create these collaborative opportunities. What's non-negotiable for the staff is where we're going. Okay, we're going to deliver on those 3 bullets. How we get there is the part that we really want to engage the staff on. So, and then the goal, we measure it, to see if we're hitting those 3 points at all times. So, here are the immediate concerns. Okay, and this is really the part you're going to get that you guys need to reflect and dig in on now. That's the overview of the strategic plan, where we'd like to go. So, you can applaud now, you love it, right? That's right. Now, class size is an issue. Okay, this came out indirectly, unbeknownst to me, but there was apparently on the policy at EAT that not less than 10 students. Okay, there are a substantial number of courses or classes with less than 10 students in it. Okay, that is a function. You can tell when you have a schedule that's challenged because you have uneven class sizes and a volume of study halls. There's something off in the schedule. So as Megan and I were talking about a number of things in the schedule and how it got to be that way, we think we've discerned some of the challenges that are in there and an idea of how to do it. So one of the big inhibitors on the schedule and a constraint to the schedule is we have 4 or 5 levels in each major core area. Okay, science, social studies, math, and language arts. Well, every time you do that, that constrains the schedule a little more because now you're Algebra 2, folks, is Algebra 2. There is no different curriculum for conceptual, for academic, for accelerated, for honors. The only thing you're doing in those concepts is you might be moving a little faster, or you may have to provide a little more support for kids who are not moving as fast. Okay, but to have 4 different curriculums, as they told me, that's not sound. Okay, it's not my opinion. You won't find that anywhere. Okay, really in terms of research in high-performing schools, you will find far fewer levels and increasing the expectation that all students can achieve at a high level. Now, you don't just throw them in there, okay? You provide scaffolds, okay, for kids in those levels, okay? So that's the real work. It's not creating 4 levels. 4 levels is a differentiation for the adults in the system, not a differentiation for the students. 4 levels allows teachers to kind of, well, I'll just track it this way. And then all the research shows homogeneous grouping, teachers teach down to the lower level, they don't raise them up. So I am very anti that, although I do recognize that students do have different goals. So we can have a high level, and then you can have an honors level where kids are really going to do some more rigorous work and go way above and beyond, along with AP. So we'll show you some things there that you can make some choices about. School environment and safety, we're going to be talking about this coming up, about the security guards and how we want to approach that as a group. There's some thoughts, obviously. I did talk to the district attorney yesterday, 2 days ago, because he's my neighbor. So I just said, hey, this is our situation. He said, yeah, you're like Toplahaken and Brandywine. State police, that kind of deal. So there's some programmatic things out there we can look at. You can send me some information. I'll pass it along. We can make some decisions about what's best and safest for our kids and staff. Standard operating procedures, moving forward, we got to create these things. Okay, there are some, but not enough. Transparency. This is an issue between building, central, and board. Okay, and we talked about this briefly today, but you are always welcome in the high school. You are always welcome to see whatever we're doing in the high school. I will always let Mrs. Torsha know anything I've shared because that's who I directly report to, but we work for you guys and we understand that. So that's going to happen. At any time, anything, we will be getting that. A nicer side of transparency is currently we have, help me with the name, Megan, athletic secretary?
Kathy Shutt.
Thank you. And then the secretarial team in the building, they are currently working on a Outlook schedule of all the activities. So, and then we're going to just include you guys in them, so you will know everything. Like now it's kind of hard because you have to go on Schedule Star to look it up. Yep. And that's, I've been in Schedule Star, it's not that easy to find what you want to find. You will then know, and hopefully you come, and you have the opportunity to see all this stuff, and those choices will be yours based on your schedule. So that will go for athletics, that will go for the arts, that will go for musical programming, all kinds of stuff will be happening that way. We'll also be moving forward with some advisory councils, which we'll have in community, board, teachers, kids on these academic, arts, athletics, I'm missing one, parent, and then superintendent. One of the pieces we're going to do is have superintendent, student superintendent advisory. Okay, now what that means is this. This is a great check and balance. I've seen this in play in my experience. It's awesome. She comes into the high school, we set up a time, and she randomly gets a bunch of kids. Not our normal high flyers like the board kids are great, right? We know they're great. Let's ask the disenfranchised kid what he thinks. Okay? So we have that guy come in, we have a bunch of them, and it changes every time. And right now, because we have this overabundance of study hall kids, we can just go pluck them out. And they can come in, they talk with her, usually pizza pries them open pretty well, give them a little pizza, and they're talking and chatting with her. And she's going to ask them, hopefully, based on her schedule, which is very busy, but going to say, hey, tell me about this. And you get all kinds of interesting information from those kids. And my previous superintendent, he used to come back and say, hey, check into this. What about this? What about that? And it wasn't just about teachers. It was about curriculum. It was about facilities. We found out a sad story that the football locker room was not being resupplied with toilet paper. That's not good. Okay, so that was a problem. She found that out in the superintendent's advisory piece. So we solved that. That was an easy solve. But you see what I mean? You get this rich information, and if you only talk to your best and brightest, you get good stories. It's like preaching to the choir. We have to talk to everybody. So that's the immediate growth issue. The long-term issues, curriculum, instructional practice, increasing the academic rigor, student motivation. The senior release program could be on both lists. Service learning is something that we're going to move, hopefully you guys want to buy into and move forward with. And then right-sizing courses, enrollment, and staff. How do we get this thing the right way? And right now, it's uneven. I'll just say it that way. It's uneven. So we can do better, and we will do better there. So do you guys have any insights? I have a couple more pieces to show you, but at this point, you want to jump in with anything? Have any thoughts, ideas?
Okay.
You're good? All right, so far. You guys saw it? Anything over here from this team? All right, so far so good. All right, schedule time options. Here's the framework of the day. We're looking at a couple different things, and we had this conversation a little bit earlier. I know it's a little tight to read that, so I'll walk. And we could do more. These are three that I looked at, but we could do more and make more adjustments and corrections. But right now, what you're seeing, of course, is, there we are, is period with the homeroom, okay, 5 minutes, time going down, periods going down the side, and then the minutes currently in there. So that would be a situation which would give us 51 minutes of instruction, okay, 7-period day ending around 2:15. We could add a 15-minute activity type event, but it's a little uneven. We could stretch the time probably to really almost 60 minutes or 55 minutes and make it meet our current timeline if we wanted to. So there's a couple different things we could do there. The issue, move that mouse. Thank you. So we could, this one here, the reason it's green is that's subliminal. That's the one I like. So here, this is currently under the 9-period operation as it is, but we have 8 academic periods and then an activity period the last 25 minutes of the day. All of these schedules eliminate study halls. No more study halls. Now, you could argue that activity period is a study hall, and it kind of is in a way, but everybody's at the end of the day. We have kids who leave for athletics. We have other things that are happening at the end of the day. The most important thing is nobody's losing any instructional time here. As a matter of fact, we're gaining instructional minutes against what we currently do. So this would put us at a 44-minute, we are a 42-minute schedule right now, right? 42? Yeah, 42 minutes. So that's that schedule. And then if we went with the full 9 as it is and then add on to the activity, that's schedule option C. That would give us a 39 roughly minute period and 340 minutes of total instructional time. So scheduling wise, the issue came up about block scheduling, not block scheduling. I'll just say this about block scheduling. I've been in all the different systems. Every system works and every system has its setbacks. The thing about block scheduling that there's not real research or evidence for, it hasn't really shown any academic gains. So for us to make a substantial change in what we do and have to retrain teachers, which will cost a chunk of money to do that, because what I've seen, sadly, is a lot of teachers will say, well, I have this block now, period 1 and 2, I just teach the first lesson here and a second lesson here. So the real value of block scheduling is that you do authentic learning, project-based learning, kind of really creative, cool type instruction. Some teachers will do that for sure. You know, the arts, music, they love it. I mean, it works really well for them. The social studies teacher, he just says, well, now I'm going to lesson 2. Here we go, moving on. And that's a bit of a grind. But it hasn't yielded any academic results. It does decrease discipline for sure. It does add minutes back in because you're not passing as many classes. So whatever you guys want to do, we'll make it that way and do it. It's not a big deal to us. We can make anything work. But this is the one I favor because I think it gives kids this piece. And that brings us to the issue also of senior release. Currently, senior release, guys, are you guys in tune with senior release? Do you understand? You need an explanation on it?
Give it to them.
Okay, senior release currently is that, and apparently I don't know, guys, how long it's been around. It's been around a long time, but I understand. But senior release, kids can come and go if they've met their credits their senior year, the number of credits they need to graduate. So if they have a study hall, they're allowed to get signed out, they get a form, and they're allowed to go. Now, if you read in the course selection book, it says it's for work, okay? And you probably could stretch it to that.
Right.
But as I'm understanding, Megan, please jump in with anything here. That's not what's happening. As a matter of fact, I've heard from guidance when I interviewed them, discussed with them, about kids came and dropped some of their, once the schedule was done, they dropped their first period class. Could have been a good academic class. They dropped it so now they could come in late in the morning, because it was also not only senior release, but apparently senior, come in later in the senior late start, right? Correct. And you know, I have to tell you, as a parent of teenagers, boys, I don't want my kids unsupervised during the day when I'm not at home. That's not a good formula at all for a whole bunch of things, in my opinion.
Not for very long.
Yeah, right. That's my opinion about it. I don't have any research behind it. I have just common sense being applied, I guess.
I got two.
Just isn't good. So I would prefer not to have that model. That doesn't mean I don't want senior release. The senior release should be structured, meaning they're going to go release to do service work. They're going to go release to internships. They're going to go release if they're going to go work, who we're going to confirm that work, where they're going. You know, on and on. There's a bunch of pieces that we could do there that would make it productive, meaningful, and enhancing for kids as they try to go on to their next experience in life, college or whatever. So something to think about. I really, the way it currently is, probably has to be adjusted. I know it does. Whether we do or not, it would be in the best interest of students.
Before you go on,
Sure.
because I think Mr. Kurtzman explained it wrong. When you're increasing the class by 2 minutes, you're not increasing the school day. You're still
Okay?
going over the
So
same-
far, we okay? Nervous? Go ahead, this is your time. This is your school, right? It is your school. We're just guests at it. Okay, this is your thing. So, do you have something?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so they opened up AP, I'm a freshman, and they opened up AP Bio next year for sophomore, which I want to take. And like, I don't really like this idea of having like a free period at the end of the day. Because I think it's very like middle school and childish. No one like you always like treat kids like adults when they're in college. But like, why would you do that? And then,
Would you prefer to have the study hall during the day, throughout the day?
always now.
Right, that's it. Do you have study halls then?
Yeah.
Okay. And you like that?
Yeah, but like I don't understand how cookies work too. Because like, how do you know like how many spaces?
There won't be empty spaces. Well, that's about the course selection model and assigning the courses. Okay? Right, I mean, but the issue, the bigger issue is, let me say this, that it's, aside from the middle school line that you feel, the other side is that when kids have to go to sports and all that, they don't miss any instructional. And that's the value of having it. Some schools, I just put it at the start of the day. The other thing is you can get your homework done. There'll be opportunities to engage with other clubs or other activities during that time. There'll be a couple other things that will be in play for students. Because kids are busy. And one of the things that we have now is kids get overloaded.
My daughter has it.
After the day,
That's what I
you
want.
do your event, your activity, and you go home. And you just work with it. This is that to help.
So it's just like, you're saying everyone has to study all in the same period?
Correct.
That's
Correct. Right.
And
And
it
it's short.
also says there a little bit that it should be opposite. It's not a child with one game period. If somebody needs extra help with math, they can sign
That's right.
up and go get tutoring.
Let's see, after our son makes a bio class, wouldn't it be nice to be able to go over
Yeah.
bio extra math?
Just association. Yeah, and that's
Those are the types of things we envision.
my daughter's a ninth grader at College Wiser, and they have it at the end of the day.
Okay.
Right now, some teachers do stay after to help, some don't, correct? Correct? Not all of them stay.
This would be during their good.
So
Their
this-
schedule, like, right now, depends on if
Oh,
they're early or they have different things,
Right.
but.
So in essence, every teacher would be there. It's
On
just
that model,
like
it's a
some
19
special
minute.
tutoring about.
For sure, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And they'd be allowed
It's only a
to.
19-minute activity?
Yeah, we have to set that system and build that.
26
But yeah, they will
minutes,
be able to
25
get
minutes.
their passes
says
from that
A
teacher, go see
on
who they
C,
want to see,
number
where they can
C.
get help.
Where do you
203 to
All these-
224.
Okay, yeah, that would be.
That's a 19
They're all
minute
back
activity?
in a teacher-assigned
21
classroom.
minutes.
Well, they're not going to have a homeroom, but yeah, you
Yeah.
can think about it at the end of the day.
If you could use your activity period to get some math tutoring.
Now, the other piece that we're talking about, then once we have
I said you could use that
established
activity period for some math tutoring.
Flushing academic
Right.
centers, places for where kids can go
All
get
these
specific
activities, help me do
science
math
help,
on that.
tutorial
59,
help,
yeah, they're only
peer-related and
25
teacher-related.
Roughly.
But that's a growth thing for about 2
But
years.
then-
Well,
That's
but,
not gonna be
and that
really
could
quick.
easily be done because you could have a health or PE teacher cover a class
For sure.
that is for science or math or a curricular area where, kids, who they might need to see so that can free up that individual to be able to take on. Right, so you can bounce your staff around that wouldn't necessarily.
Currently, our library, as you all probably know, is only used half the time. Maybe you didn't know that, but if you don't, I'm telling you, it's only used half the time. We're not talking about staffing more with the librarian because that's a contractual issue, and we understand that. But the space is not a contractual issue. That space belongs to the district to make decisions when we use how they will. Those can be places for centers of academic excellence, and there's a bunch of things we can do there. I've talked to Mr. Matz about how we can increase the ability for students to go in and do research, because right now what happens if a teacher brings them down when the librarian's not there, that's how it's used. Other than that, it's normal. And that's a shame. It's a beautiful space with a lot of resources. Now, what they won't be doing is checking books out. Okay, that will, that'll only happen in every third day piece of the librarians. But that piece, I have a meeting set with the librarian, Mrs. Doyle, I just came through on my email, so to discuss this, and Mr. Matz will be there talking about how we make this really a resource center, not just a library. So that's just an aside, by the way. Okay, are we? You can ponder this and think about this issue. It doesn't need response from me now. I just want to let you know this is kind of where we're thinking,
And then
So
can we
you
get
know,
these
he's
slides?
thinking about it for September.
right for next year.
Can we get this so we can take a
I
look at it?
I sent it out to you
Okay.
today.
Did it have this piece on it?
I need to look at this.
If it
No.
didn't, I'll send all this out.
What you sent to me was not that.
Yeah,
You
th-
sent
that's
to
another
me
topic I'll get
the,
into in a
yeah,
second.
I'm sorry, Carol, I
Yeah.
didn't. I sent two other things.
I'll get it out to everybody. We will, absolutely. I'll get it to Mrs. Torsion, and because I don't have everyone grouped in the board in an email yet, so we'll get it to Mrs. Torsion, she can send it to everybody. Okay, that's that issue. All right, yes. Are we good on that
Yeah, thank
conversation?
you.
point?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next issue, I got to close out on this presentation. Reese?
And none of these affect the contract?
No.
They're all within.
Well, this is
right.
within the
Okay.
contract.
Right, it's all within the 450 minutes currently in the contract.
Right. So now, the next issue is, we have to, in my opinion, and in terms of research, give kids choice. We have to provide choice options. This is not for the fall. This is for the future. Okay? But giving kids choice shows respect, shows intelligence, shows honor to kids and families. It just is an important way to go. Now, these are just ideas, not really decisions at all. But if we end up creating pathway schools of opportunity for kids, in here you have high rigor in your regular core pieces that you do. You'd end up with 7 credits, or 6 or 7 last year. Graduation now is 24.6, I believe is the number, 6.2, something.
24.65.
Thank you. So, something like that. Here you still would have rigorous, pieces, and we talked a little bit today about what should be in those courses, and those are future conversations to have in the curricular side of the world. But one of the things that I know is a game changer, I've enacted this in a previous experience, is that bringing AP Human Geography into 9th grade is a game changer. Okay, now let me tell you, we started out the first year we did it with 15 kids, okay, in a pilot model. The next year it was around 50, the following year 75. Now there's around 100, around 40% of that class takes AP Human Geography, 83% of which passes with a 3 or better. So AP Human Geography is generally seen as a gateway AP course, meaning it's one of the less challenging ones, but it's challenging, but it's less challenging. So then, what do you think happens after they pass the first one? Well, in 10th grade, they take 2. 11th grade, they take 2. They leave your high school. If they wanted to blow up their senior year, they're still leaving your high school with 15 AP credits. If they do the dual enrollment pieces, they're up around 21, 24. That, to me, is a big service to students and families. So in this model, and this is, like I said, really in a preliminary draft form, but this would be one student's sample career. So they go through lunch, world language, half PE, half health, pathway exploration. Now here are your pathways. You can do one a quarter. Now let's say that the student chose to do engineering and technology quarter 1, creative performing arts 2, human services, human performance 3, honors in their 4th quarter. They didn't do this last one, okay? Well, they hated all the pathways. Well, by default, you have one left. So okay, that's your choice. But they do that in this piece here. Then after that, you see 6 pathway opportunities. So for example, if you're a kid who's passionate about the fine arts, and you take, drawing 1 in the first part of your 10th grade year, and another, high art class, what does that deliver if you do serious artwork for 3 years and 6 courses? That delivers kids who are, back to our original point, eligible for selective 4-year opportunities. High art schools, high music schools, there's all different models. Engineering and technology, and we can together decide what the pathways ought to be, what's in best interest of this community for these kids. But to me, the mechanism is really the thing that we can take a good look at. Very motivating. You will then see also half P, another half a year of PE here, half a year of SAT prep in 10th grade. Service learning, half a credit. Keystone support, it hopefully, my fervent prayer is that Keystone goes away. I don't know if it will or it won't, but if it does, it opens us up to do even better things. But right now we are where we are. So if a kid doesn't make it, after 9th and 10th grade where we're doing our Keystones, he has Keystone support and a tool to help him or her make it. And then in your last year, you have a whole bunch of options here. So you still have, currently we don't make students take a 4th year of science, although they could, and they could take a dual enrollment, get 3 college credits. They could take another opportunity down here for dual enrollment. So that would be 6 college credits their senior year in a worst case scenario if a student wanted it. In a best case scenario, if a student was in our honors piece, they could end up taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 college courses in high school. If they're literally that 14th year kid, that 13th, 14th year kid we're talking about. So that's what that model will deliver for kids. And again, we can tweak it and change it to what is the best fit. One of the concerns I have right away is it's 1 year world language. We probably need to solve that problem. Because we know getting into competitive colleges, you usually need to be at level 3 or 4. So there's some things we have to look at there. It's not totally completed, but that's the piece there.
Can you explain the state requirement for phys ed?
State requirement for phys ed is only one time in the entire high school. That's all you have to have. So we're offering it more than that. One of my things about it, and what I want from our staff, and we have staff members who are like this for sure, so don't think that they're not. But what I want from our staff is that they get a service mindset to students. That doesn't mean let kids do whatever they want, okay? Servant mindsets, understand the end point, hold kids accountable, but give them all the support to get there in a friendly, nice way. That's what I want from our staff. Hopefully they're doing that, and we'll do more of it. But phys ed, right now, kids are in phys ed because it's a requirement. And you can talk to the level of discipline we get out of phys ed. You know what kids are scored on in phys ed? You know how you get a grade in phys ed, generally speaking?
Show up at the uniform.
Correct. Now let's say we apply that same scoring grading principle to, let's go to art. If I show up in art and you're teaching me drawing and sketching, right? If I bust out the Crayola and I scribbled up, do I get an A in your class? I showed up, I had my stuff. I'm not getting an A. We should be looking at models that grow kids, okay, in every content area. And phys ed is, it's just, the uniform thing is a bizarre thing to me. I never understood it, still don't. What I want to see is growth. Let's say we have a kid who's just really not fit at all. Presidential Physical Fitness Test, by the way, is a great model to use to have your kids be tracked in terms of academic, not academic, but health, what you want them to get out of it. Nevertheless, that's aside. We can have a conversation with the real phys ed people, not me. But the point is that if a student comes in and can't even do 1 push-up or 1 pull-up, and they leave, and you want to build a growth model, they can do 20, that's a good A. But because you wore the right uniform, that's not a good A. It just isn't. So there has to be a lot more in that. But by law, you're required to do PE 1 time in high school, and that's it.
It could be a measure of the effort, too, not necessarily outcome.
Correct.
Maybe
Correct.
2 is huge enough for somebody.
Right. Yeah, you build that model out, and there's some subjectivity for sure, but there's also some criteria. Again, more than just your uniform. And if we actually then, what about the kids who are passionate? When I was a kid, I used to love phys ed when I was young, like a young kid coming up through, and I saw this in schools. Elementary, middle school, kids love it. High school, it was off. I'm not sure why. So I think I have some opinions, but I'll keep them to myself right now. Bottom line is that if we create a pathway for human performance, and there's a kid who's really passionate about kinesiology and developing as a trainer and what have you, and we create the right things in our phys ed department for 6 pathways to do that, and our girl leaves, and they're really ready to engage and get into the Penn State school, kinesiology, or they're ready to go be a personal trainer and pass that licensing test or certified strength guy. We've done something. We've really done something. And there are all kinds of ways to engage these kids. And you think they'll be motivated? How many discipline problems do you think we get out of that class? Not too many. Not too many. So, more to come on that, guys. Keep that in your thoughts as we go forward. The other piece, and the one that Rich had sent out to you guys was, let's see if I can find it here. Oh, just reflect on that for a second. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. What does that mean? It goes back to the pathways, guys. It's about being passionate about what you want to do as a student and as a teacher, and putting people in their passion so they can maximally, deliver for you. That's what I want our experience for kids to be about. That when they leave, they are so passionate that they long to do more of what they're already passionate about. So, it's a big order. That's a tall task for sure. So, that is now the end of that piece. Now it's time to weigh in, as I think Connor or Rich said, to bring your comments forward.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for the presentation. I'm really excited about this. I think it covers a lot of the things we wanted to talk about tonight. In terms of moving forward, it came up in the meeting today, there are 2 things that the board should be aware of. One that we actually need to take, to move, and that is changing the course selection guide. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
No problem.
Okay.
I'll jump in. I do have the packet for the board here in paper form. Then I'll get what
Before you get to that,
yes,
President, because these are comments about your previous presentation. You talk about the re-engagement, and you said kids will do good in middle school, and they seem to.
Sometimes they do, yeah.
How much of that has to be
No, it's one.
Well,
That's the course guide.
my mom used to say this to me, Rich, and I believe this to be true, that idle hands are the partner of the devil. Okay, so if we have a bunch of idle hands, then yes, peer pressure will impact that for sure, and kids will fall that way. But if you're engaged and you're into it. So this goes back to the piece where if we have developmental programming, for kids, and so let's say football's just too much effort really for you. You just really don't want to do all the work, but you love football. So now we have, a flag football developmental league where you go play 2 days a week. Kids are engaged. Okay, so in the arts, if we have a place that maybe some kids aren't at the level of the elite art student, but we have the art club piece that they can go do that, they're engaged. So.
And how much, this is a touchy subject, but how much of the loss of interest is drugs and alcohol?
I think it's a big part. But why? But the better question, or a question I should say, is why do kids do drugs and alcohol? They're bored. They're bored. Now, there are always going to be some kids who do it. And there's always going to be peer pressure who pulls kids in, just like kids who are sexually promiscuous. Okay? You're going to always have that. But where does that hole in their life come from? To me, that hole comes from not being part of something that's greater than yourself. Okay? We don't see a lot of kids doing Live for Life having those issues. Kids who are volunteering, doing that kind of work. We just don't see a lot of it. We see a lot of kids who begin to get disconnected who do that. Those kinds of things. And this isn't a PSC is going to fix everything, guys. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we can do better than we're doing for people.
2 other comments. You had a chart up there about aligned acts as opposed to the random acts. And I think that has been a problem here because some of the feedback we hear from kids and parents is that if you have this teacher, you're getting this, but the same class with this teacher, you don't get anything.
Right.
And that's, I think, necessary that you get everybody on the same page.
Well,
That's aligning curriculum then, right?
Some of it's aligning curriculum, and some of it is also engaging teachers in rich dialogue about what they're doing. Okay, so some of it means that as an administrator, we have to be on the same page about what is good instruction. So that's really important. And they can speak, I'm glad you're here, because I sent an email out, maybe yesterday, I can't, they're all running together right now for me, but about the increased walkthrough and when they'll start and so forth. And I explained in that email, it's not about catching teachers doing anything. It's about real dialogue about what we're going to talk to each other about and how we're going to grow our instructional practice. Because I fervently believe teachers, when they got into education, deeply cared about kids and wanted to do special things for them. And many still do, but sometimes you get pulled off your path. So our job, our responsibility is to re-engage, make sure. And so when you go into a walkthrough, a little 5-minute drop-in, not the formal, dog and pony shows I like to call from the state, which doesn't really change anything. Anyone can do that. If you can't deliver on that as a teacher, we really are in trouble. So, but in these walkthroughs, when you'll see stuff, it's out of context. You're going to see a 5-minute snippet, okay? But it's unannounced, so you're going to see real activity. And then when you go back later in the day to have the conversation with them, because that's part of it, you do the 5-minute walkthrough, you must go speak to them later that day then. And when you do that, you're having real dialogue to gain insight as an administrator. Say, tell me about this. I noticed this, like one time I was back when I was early in my administration career, there was a kid who had his head down. Of course, like, that's terrible, right? So I'm in there, this kid's disengaged, his head's down. So I made the note on the walkthrough. I went back and I saw the teacher and I said, hey, let's talk about that guy. And she said, wow, abusive situation at home, he's not getting any sleep at night. I got him put his head down. So now, if I went in every single time and saw that, I have a real problem. But if I see it one time and she has that explanation, what am I, a monster? No. We understand. And then we'll get into, let's get that kid the resource help that he may need from guidance or whoever else. So that's what those frequent walkthroughs, in our model, you'll be doing, now we have a bigger team in high school, of course, but we'll be doing about between 20 and 30 a day with the 3 administrators. So we'll be getting close to 100 a week. And Megan will attest that really that had not been going on.
In this phase or as an ongoing?
Ongoing, always. And here's what inhibits that. If you have a big discipline issue, there are things that pull you off the rails, but one of the things that I directed each administrator to do is talk to I gave them their matrix, including myself in there. And I said, make sure that your assistant, your secretary, your person knows that's a non-negotiable time unless there's an emergency. So if you're out doing walkthroughs, don't call me. And there's never 2 of us doing it at the same time. There'll be one person, so the other 2 will pick up the slack while we're doing it. So that's how you enrich the educational environment. And once teachers understand that we're really talking about instruction, they love it. I mean, they want to talk about instruction. They forget they want to talk about instruction sometimes, but they do. They really do. So,
my last comment should probably excite Mrs. Bites. Preston mentioned today that he respects BCTC, but he thinks we should do more to keep those kids here.
Are you trying to incite or excite? Okay. Here's my thought about BCTC. My brother, by the way, I didn't say this morning. My brother's a college professor at Stevens Tech, and he was a department chair in Tech Ed at Penn Manor, so it's been part of our life. He was the Golden Hammer recipient at Berks at Reading Muhlenberg Tech. Go see his name. It's out there. Very proud of that. This day. It's very interesting. And he credits the Berks Career Center, well, it was VOTEC then, but was saving his life, really, because he was the first kid ever in Berks County identified with dyslexia in like 73. Severe dyslexia. And they were putting him at that time, special ed was everybody went in one room. Everybody. Now my brother, they found out then later, after they knew this kid seemed regular, but there's something going on here. He had a great second grade teacher for the second time, who told my mom. They took him down to Temple, 156 IQ. Kids stuck in the room with kids with Downs, with just all kinds of challenges. So he was more teacher's aide to the teacher. The teacher said that. So he goes on and continues his education, and really at that time was just still struggling. And their goal was like, let's just get him to be a carpenter, okay? Because he struggled so desperately to read, to write. So athletics and Berks Career, well, VOTEC saved him. He got done. He went to Edinburgh, which, by the way, at the time, Edinburgh was the special needs Sheehy school. Okay, the kids who had, you'll see there are ramps all over the place at Edinburgh. So he went there for a year and then transferred to Millersville and became a Tech Ed teacher. So it's a great success story. So I'm definitely an advocate in having that skill. However, I also recognize that there are competitors. We do pay for them to go there. Okay, there's a fee. And I think it's interesting, when you have a competitor, you very rarely invite them into your living room to take your customers. So by having them come in, and we take all our 9th graders down to an assembly, I was just saying this to one of the counselors today, and having them go down to the assembly, all of our kids who are honors kids or not honors kids, we're forcing them into hearing it. Then, how many kids, no big shock that a kid will say, yeah, I'll take a day off and go out to VOTEC to just get out of school. And oh, by the way, we pay for the bus to now send them kids and money. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying we should look at the relationship a little bit and make sure it's right for us. Well, it is right for us for some of our kids, but how we're...
To what degree?
Yeah, let them bust the kids out. Let them pay for some stuff. I mean, and then the other piece is holding kids. I'm not really into it, holding kids hostage to all come to the assembly. Letting kids who want to come out to come is definitely the right, fair. Let them sign up and do it. But making all 300 kids go sit to listen to a pitch, I don't know. So it's just a personal.
Besides, I think if we're not, if you want to, you guys hit the parents too. Let's try to get the kids there before that. The parents need to know about it.
Right.
Yeah. There's a disconnect there.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's a lot of work to do, guys. I'm sure you're aware. And there's always a lot of work to do. So I'm not sure where to go with it. It's just like an internal, personal thing we got into today. The other big issue this is what Rich emailed you guys about. So here's what for the consideration: condensing homogeneous levels of course offerings currently have core subject areas that offer 4 or 5 levels. That is unheard of. I just want you to be aware in terms of the practice that's going on around the country. Maybe it is the best fit for Daniel Boone. I'm asking you to decide if it's the best fit for Daniel Boone. Right now, in varying courses, like Algebra 2, it's pulled out of our course booklet, and I did give it to Mrs. Torsia, so you have it. I also sent her an electronic copy where it's highlighted. But Algebra 2 has conceptual. They just say it's Algebra 2, but they mean it's academic. Accelerated honors, not AP Algebra 2, but then you have an AP offering. So there's potentially a 5th level. That constrains the schedule tremendously. The teachers say, well, I can teach better if I have all those kids in one room. There's no research to support that. That's all I'm saying. What that is differentiating for the adult, not differentiating for the student. So it's not a high leverage practice. It's not a good practice. We will continue to, that's the desire of this board. But it is my recommendation that we really look at this and make some real hard decisions about this. So, and I laid it out for you in each area where that occurs in the major areas. So you can see U.S. History 2, academic, accelerated, honors, AP. What you will notice, I should say, is if you take a look at literature and you take a look at science, well, the lowest level is called conceptual in science. But in literature, it's called applied. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if we want to apply, let's call them applied. Period. Like, there's this disconnect in all these departments. So I want to get those standardized and even and consistent. One thing that I know makes excellence is consistent and pervasive. What do we consistently do well, and what is pervasive throughout our building and our system? So when we talk about essential questions, is everybody doing them? Because we know they're a high leverage practice. It's consistent, it's pervasive. We have some excellence starting to happen. In this situation, one of the pieces that is, when I look at the rationale of why I'm bringing this, forward out of our conversation today, was create a high academic culture for students. If we take it down, for students in preparation for college and career, reduce the constraints in the master schedule, allowing for right sizing of class enrollment. Okay, so we stop this accordion nature of what is going on. One thing we know, we have the number of teachers we have the number of students we have. So this doesn't necessarily alleviate the students. I mean, classes are going to just become right-sized. They're not going to be, this 40, classes that had less than 10. We're not going to have that anymore. Now, everything else will be special exception by the superintendent and the board. If we want to run an AP course that has 8 kids, that'll come to you. You guys will make a decision about that. But that's how we're going to do that transparency piece, that you're going to vote on that. And it doesn't have to be in a public meeting. You guys can, however Mrs. Torsia decides that should go.
It has to be a public meeting.
Well, okay, whatever, that's your piece. The piece in my mind is that we have the conversation, the transparency, you make decisions about it, and then you say, no, we want to run that on a 2-year cycle. And then I'll let you know the pros and cons of running it on a 2-year cycle. Sometime, like math, that's injurious, I guess is the right word, where in social studies you can do it, because it's not a build upon. So you have to look at those pieces. The other piece then, if you push these pieces together and reduce some levels, you will have an expanding enrollment in AP. That happens every single time. Now, and Jenny and I just established we're going to have secondary campus, I shouldn't say campus, there's secondary meetings between us to start looking at some common things between both of us and coming forward. What made me think of this was that when they went to de-leveling, schools go to de-leveling where you only have all kids taking one level, not in high school, usually in the middle school level.
What is de-leveling?
De-leveling means there is no more advanced and not advanced. Okay? Like in the middle school, how many levels do you have right now? 2 in math?
Yes, there's an honors, and then there's, well, I should back up. There's actually 3 in math. Up until next year, they were not identified, we had this conversation at a curriculum
Right.
instruction meeting prior to. So before they were all just the 6th grade math, but there were levels that were honors, and then there was one that was above the average level, but it was somewhere in between,
Sure.
but they didn't have that name.
Right.
So I have them going next year where they actually at least have the name,
Mhm.
so that I wanted them more aligned up with what the high school had, so
Mhm.
that we could say they're moving from this
On
to
the bus,
that,
off
you
the
know what
bus,
I
yeah,
mean?
sure.
So
Sure.
it wasn't secret.
Right.
So, but in language arts, there's only 2.
Yeah.
There's just honors, and then
Okay.
there's the regular academic.
So what de-leveling does, Connor, is it says no more of that in middle school, and because what the research found about leveling kids is there was a disproportionate number of poor and underrepresented populations in those classes, and it became a life sentence that once you were in this lower level class,
Yeah.
the next year was in a lower level, and so the chasm went like that. So they did away with that. 2 things happened. The 2 levels were by high school then were AP or all other. Now, I'm not an advocate of that either, because I do think there begins to be nuances and directions kids want to go. So I think you have a high level, have an honors level, you have an AP level. That's kind of what I wrote up there. But we could do all kinds of things and make all kinds of choices. The less levels, the easier the schedule gets.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should go easy, I'm just saying that's the truth.
But in middle school, where your students are younger and mature at a different level.
Absolutely.
Even into high school,
Right.
but at middle school especially, if you offer them all the same curriculum, they may grow into the curriculum.
There's no question about it. And that's what the evidence, the research evidence shows that that's what happens. And then we haven't sentenced these kids that when they get in 9th grade, you're in the conceptual track already. You're done in 9th grade, you're going conceptual. There's no getting beyond it, really. Once you're in that track, changing a level or 2 is brutal. We had a story, was this, I don't want to say anything, but the student was up, down,
They went
up. or-
honors, and they went down accelerated, then they went to academic, and then for the next year, they wanted to go back up to honors.
Right.
But there's too many.
Yeah, it's just,
so
it's
different.
too chopped up and it becomes a problem. So, but what we'll grow the AP program based on this piece. This just is a natural driver. Kids who are super serious about academics will move that way. The question may be, well, let's offer just, the conceptual level, the honor academic level, and the AP level. I mean, the 3 that I'm recommending don't have to be the final 3. I just think that looking at what's out there and reading every course description, which will be highlighted on that PDF that Mrs. Torsia says, you'll see sometimes the change in a course between levels, 1 sentence. 1 sentence. Or, and we'll have summer work. Now, my other concern about all those levels is how kids get in. It's on teacher recommendation or on a grade. Now, teacher grades are their recommendation, by the way, so to make it twice is using the same data point. And it's a subjective data point, because when you drill into a teacher's grade almost all the time, you will see obviously some objective scores, tests that were multiple choice and what have you, that were not teacher made, maybe company made. If they're teacher made, that's a little more subjective. But then you'll see all kinds of other pieces that make up that grade. You'll see extra credit. You'll see timeliness of homework, all valuable things, but I don't know that really talks to the student's skill set in the content. So we also are currently working on it. We're going to have more data points to help get kids to the right place. Not all data driven, but more data. We'll take teacher recommendation, teacher grades for sure. But we're going to be putting together now, Rob, you said today about the Iowa Algebra Readiness Test. So we'd like to have that. We'd like to have any other data points that we can get in there, some benchmark or some common summatives. If our teachers are teaching Algebra 2, and there's no such thing as a conceptual Algebra 2 and accelerated, it's Algebra 2. The concepts are all the same. It's just how you get kids to grasp it. So it goes to the skill set of the teacher being able to scaffold the learning, as opposed to slowing it down for the teacher so she can teach to that section of kids. But over here, we're going to take the same things, we're going to move a little faster. It's a teacher skill set, so we'd have to support teachers to be able to do that. But the way kids are getting placed in there right now is solely on teacher recommendation, which I mean grades. If the kid doesn't have the grade, then we actually ask the teacher what they think. What do you think a teacher thinks of a kid who has a D? Yeah, not that much usually. So there are and we're looking at. We're having conversations with Mary Beth Kiesel about and Rob, what are the right tools to put in play to build this metric out. If we build a 4-point rubric where it has multiple data points plus teacher pieces, The students' scores, let's say you made each one worth 4 points. You get a total of 13 to 16, you get in. What if you don't have the 13? Well, we offer you a summer opportunity to take a course and retest right before school starts. I mean, we want to keep the door open as much as possible, for as long as possible. We don't want to close opportunities.
If you don't mind me just jumping in here, that was something this committee really tried. We wanted to open these courses up in previous years because just 4 or 5 years ago, you had to meet a trifecta of requirements to get into these, to move between any levels, essentially. To go from academic to honors, I mean, you needed like an 87 or a 92, and then you needed a teacher recommendation, and you needed to pass with an A the final exam, which was teacher written. And
which is, by the way, all the same data. I just want you to keep that.
And that's something that I guess we didn't really consider, but something that motivated this committee, and I don't know if it was old members of the committee at the time, but it was really to open opportunities up, because in the past, if you got a 91 instead of a 92, you were out. So adding the teacher recommendation was really a way to almost...
No, I'm not critical of it. What I'm saying to you about it is it's just really the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay? Having multiple data sources, some of them that are objective and some that are subjective, really is probably a better answer.
I do really like what you said about flexibility, though, how if you maybe miss one of those data points, retest over the summer. You're still giving students that
ownership and a
opportunity.
chance.
Yes, exactly.
How about that for an idea? That you go into the summer and what?
A parent piece too, perhaps, so the parent could weigh in on whether the kid's doing his max effort on their end.
Right. Well, here's the thing, and absolutely, I mean, parents are partners.
Yeah.
So the thing that concerns you, when a student's giving maximum effort and still not getting scores, throwing them into a deep end is a challenge. There's a frustration that we've got to protect kids on. Because guess what parents always want? Harder, more rigorous, more challenging. So we just have to use good educational sense and make sure we right place them and use the best tools that we can develop to do that. And then
parents don't always want that.
Yeah.
They don't.
Right.
Some of us know that our kids leave.
And that's a valuable point. That's what you want to hear.
Conversation with guidance is how we find out.
Right.
What
Okay. But yeah, actually, parent conversation is very valuable to what you do with it, and how much it impacts the decision. I mean, in the end, we all know. I think every school has, against advice or against recommendation, and put the kid in. And I've seen that everywhere I've been. I'm assuming it's here, because in the end, they're your child. I don't know. You may stay up all night with them doing the work. I mean, if that's the load that the parent wants to take on, I'm not going to discourage people.
It should at least be a piece of it.
Sure. Yeah. No, for sure. I agree.
Preston, understand. I don't have a vote on this. But if you're recommending 3 levels, my thought would be for the committee to go along with that. Now, that's up to them. So,
well, I don't want to...
Can I finish?
Okay, go ahead. Sure, Mr. Bertino.
Do I
Go
use the
ahead.
gavel?
You're the chairman.
My question is, you were talking about criteria. Students are choosing their classes now.
They are.
Can you develop the criteria that fast?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the question you can develop, can you develop it well? They're two different things.
Well, right. It's a dynamic. You
Correct.
build it as it goes along.
Right. So here's what I do believe, that when you get to that piece, the lowest possibility is academic. Okay? So that is condensing that piece there. So we're going to get kids that. The bigger issue then, we've elevated it for a lot of kids, because there are a lot of kids in those conceptual classes, concerningly. So we've elevated it for them. So I want to make sure that we get the teacher the support and the kids the support to deliver the scaffolded piece that those kids will need. So that's, and then building out the criteria, which common summative, which we, just to give you a common test, meaning that each of our teachers is giving the same test. That's happening a little. It's not happening exclusively, but it's happening.
Or enough.
Right, but it's happening. Like I said, when I said there's pockets of these good things, there are. Like we were talking with 2 sets of teachers today, and they were like, yeah, we work together, we use the same test. But formalizing that practice is important. And then using a benchmark of some sort that is an independent variable, a verifier, I should say, to help us understand. Taking a recommendation, the grades from the teacher. So there's a metric we can put together. And I'm always just as concerned that we still may screw it up. And then what do we do to give that kid a chance, another bite at the apple? And that's what really, sitting in the summer, doing some work and sitting for the opportunity again is what it's about.
So what's going to be the hardest piece? Is it going to be getting the teachers on board to say, hey, we're creating a level here, and then you got to change your teaching style a bit, or is it getting the parents to realize that we're going to bring in?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all hard. okay? I think when you talk to teachers, they're going to recognize right away that's going to change the dynamic of some of their classes. You know, they're going to have to instruct differently. My biggest concern, and I see it, is that teachers teach down to the lowest level. They don't pull them up. When you put them into a more heterogeneous group, there is the piece rises. Now, it is harder for the teacher. The parents, I'm not sure what to say. You guys understand the community better than I do, much better than I do. So what their response will be and their thoughts will be about it, what I'd like them to understand is that where do you want to send your kids out into the world without the right tool? You know, and that's really what's going to happen if we continue on this conceptual line. You know, if you're talking about kids who are going to go into career, they still need to have a strong skill set in reading, writing, and mathematics. There's not a job out there anywhere. I mean, that's why all those college and career standards are out there.
So as a parent saying, if we're getting rid of conceptual now, it's going over the academic, so is that you know, I'm saying with parents, okay, am I thinking, does that mean my academic, if I keep us in the academic now, they're not going to learn as well because now we're going to teach to the conceptual, like you said, teach the lowest common.
Correct, and so that's what we definitely have to. We have to be cognizant of it and go into it and be direct with staff about that. And we're doing walkthroughs, a voluminous number of walkthroughs, that we can't. If we see that, we have to have that conversation. What we want to see is quality instruction, which is when you standardize the model of the lesson planning template, when you standardize the model of the instructional strategies, okay, you begin to diminish those pieces. So what will happen for some families, for sure, is they will go, well, I'm worried about being in that. I'm going to go to honors. I'm going to do a little bit of extra work because I want to be in that group. That's not a bad thing.
We're not the only school. This isn't inventing the wheel either.
No, that's
This
correct.
is already
That's
working
correct.
in other-
Right. I'm not that original, so you never have to worry about that.
On that note, though, there are some things that we talked about in the meeting that you want to do next year. One of them is changing these levels and bringing it down to the 3 that we've just discussed. And that would require board action because it's in the course selection guide. And I believe Mrs. Torsha has the new course selection guide.
And I sent that out to all of you today.
So that's going to be what, academic honors AP?
Yeah. Now, something you mentioned earlier, I don't know if you use the terms interchangeably, but college prep versus academic, are those one and the same?
Yeah, I thought we probably should stick with the terms people know.
Okay.
I mean, what we have to do through the NCAA clearinghouse down the road is making sure that they understand academic is college level. Because there's a delineation at the NCAA which will not accept some courses that are that way.
Well,
so
the reason I mention that is for college admissions. If they see, instead of academic, college prep, that might stand out more to them. And I'm wondering
This
if
would be the time to change
this. I'm
it.
thinking it would be. So I don't know if that. Maybe that's my only thought on it.
we could term it academic college prep.
That would be-
all things so people could make the bridge that it's the academic.
Yeah, or
prep.
academic / college prep, and you could choose to identify it. How maybe on college transcripts you put college prep, and if in the course selection guide you put academic. I don't know. But that's
Couldn't
one
imagine
thing.
that being a problem.
I don't think so either.
Do you think that would cause a disorientation in the community when we change the...
Well, whatever we do is going to be on the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's
I
changed.
would not do it because of
Do we want to make that? Do we want to call it academic now, or do we want to call it college prep?
I don't feel going.
I'd prefer college prep. I
Yeah,
think.
I like it. That's a good.
Would you like to maintain?
It's
I'd
consistent.
love to hear from you guys. If you call it academic, all one academic college prep,
All in one.
all in one, helps people probably bridge on the current piece.
And then maybe we could transition it next year
Yeah.
if people
Well,
want to do that.
Yeah, sure.
So this year could be academic / college prep, and the next year could be college
And
prep.
Yeah.
have just a little bit of a definition.
I'm sorry?
You could have just a little bit of a definition in the course
Yeah,
catalog.
well, in the course thing, we're going to have to now illustrate what each level means.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
fine.
that-
Want to do
yeah.
that? Academic college
I would
prep.
like
Are you
to
good with that,
migrate
Mr. Rathgeb?
So good.
All right. So
And
I
what else,
guess,
the 3 tracks?
are we comfortable with that? Because
Yeah, I think
that would need to go
shot.
on to the board then, if we want to
It's
get it in
the
place for
cohesion that
next
I've
year.
been looking for.
I mean,
And then-
this is where I think this is what administration is recommending.
Yeah.
I'm no expert in education.
Right.
So this
Yes.
is the recommendation that they feel is going to move us
We
forward.
don't see a glaring problem either. I think that's what they're going to, the purpose of them running by us.
All right, well
I
then,
just have one question
Oh.
about that then. With the activity period, the 25 minutes at the end of the day, we went with that.
that's the one next,
Would
that's
that
the
be
next.
the part of the
thing.
scaffolding you're referring to? Is that where the?
Well, you certainly can get to there, but
Yeah.
really scaffolding happens in the class.
In the class?
Yeah, I mean.
So we're talking about aids? Having
No,
aids in
no,
the
I mean, you may. I mean, it depends on what kind of kids you have in terms of IEPs. That's the aid piece.
Well, we're talking about those kids that
Yeah, no.
don't have IEPs right now.
Right. The scaffolding, I'm just saying
What's your
that
vision?
you won't need aids. What the teacher needs some support in explanation. What is scaffolding? So let me give you an example, which is, by the way, just good instruction. So let's say you have a math class, the old standard 20 problems, go home, do 20 problems, kids. And now you have Connor struggling. He's not getting it. This is what scaffolding is. I said, Connor, come here. I said, sit beside me here. These guys are working on these problems. I'm going to sit, you're going to sit with me. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to walk right through this one problem. Okay? Now, the second problem, Connor, I'm going to take you through 2 steps. See if you can do the third step. Third problem, I'm going to do the first step. You're going to do 2 steps. Now, Connor, for homework tonight, everyone else is doing 20 problems. I just need you to do 3. Not be overwhelmed by 20. Do 3. And he goes home and he gets it. The next time he comes back, now he has conception where you want to be, and you're able to progress him a little more.
I can see our teachers saying they just can't do that if they end up with like 10 of them.
I understand teaching's hard. I do get that. It's a tough job. Serving kids is a tough job.
And you would be trying to get them the tools and.
Absolutely. I mean, they're going to need some support on how to do this. You know who's really good at this? You'll go in all day long and see elementary teachers doing this all day.
I was going to say that.
All day long. The best instruction of your life you will see at the elementary level. And I know this because for the last 5 years I worked K-12. And I used to be exclusively a secondary guy. Even when I did as the supervisor of instruction at Reading, I only observed secondary teachers. What you see at the secondary level is those teachers are so very good at content. At the elementary level, teachers are so very good at instructional practice. If we can, morph them, we really be there. And sometimes you do. You see some great elementary people who have content. You see some secondary people who are awesome instructionally. But by and large, we need to build a system that has people being really good at instruction.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so that's the one next thing I want to talk about, the schedule. But in terms of the structure itself, taking the 5 and bringing it down to 3, I think you have a unanimous recommendation from the committee to go to the full board. Next item would be the schedule, and this is something we determined is actually something that doesn't need board approval because it's within the academic school day. We haven't ever voted before on, it's been in the course handbook how the classes are scheduled, but we never really set this alone. Of course, if we could if we wanted to. I like option B, that's the recommendation from the administration with the activity period. And something that I'm a huge fan of is the elimination of homeroom, and that's been something I've been pushing for a while because that's just idle time.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, you're taking.
Time out for sports.
Yeah.
And lunch was all uniform.
Well,
Everything had
and
the
there's
same
a block of time that still has to be according.
It does.
Yeah.
You had a half-hour block for lunch.
I have
Set a
the
half
equal
hour.
number of periods. But what you're doing there is it's accordion style, just like it is right now.
You're still gonna have that.
We can go 42-minute lunches for the kids, but then also the teachers, which says in their contract they get 30, then they get 42 as well. Because
I don't think this is.
Just curious. I'm not-
You're
I'm just
bringing
gonna
up.
open that up.
Are you mentioning how they're
I
staggered?
thought, yeah.
Not the time, but just how you have the 4 different levels.
right.
Okay.
So we'll look at it, we'll visit it and see
Yeah,
what is the
if it
best.
doesn't work out, it doesn't.
So that's something
Let me
else.
just explain to Dave and Carol, I don't know if you saw the email, but because of the time constraints, Connor and I told Mary Beth and Preston to go ahead and reduce it from the 5 to 3 unless we hear an objection. And then we'll vote on it on the 23rd.
Now, when you go from 5 to 3, that you could have 2 teachers keep teaching on an AP or whatever we're calling it, academic/CP class, depending on the numbers of students that would be going into, or there would be repeat. You might have more than one CP. Obviously, you're going to have more than one academic/CP class for that grade level for that
Absolutely. There'd be
subject.
more than one
Right.
section,
So
sure.
those people that were teaching whatever the lower one was will now be teaching
Correct.
the other
Oh,
one.
for sure.
So.
Absolutely.
And some scheduling could take place into that when we're looking at student levels and abilities
No doubt
as well.
about it.
And you'll be able to get the training that they need or the in-service that you need
It
to
shouldn't
get
really take
teachers
any-
all on the
Yeah, I
same-
mean, the
between
issue, the
numbers.
only
Teaching
issue that will be,
what?
in my opinion, is how
Yeah.
to scaffold kids in a room where there
I don't know.
is some variation.
I just got
We're
it
not
now.
talking about a heterogeneous group where there are wide range of
Right.
learners. We're not talking about AP high learners
Right.
and kids who are really struggling. We're talking about a moderate amount of
Right.
variation. But to your point, we will be doing scaffolding training. As a matter of fact, some of the training that we have coming up at the high school will be finishing out the EATS model and then looking at how do we accelerate kids. And what I mean by acceleration is taking struggling learners and how do we bring them forward. In addition, and there's a ton of modeling around scaffolding on that piece. Previewing information a couple days in advance for kids who might need a little bit extra. So
Some work could
Yeah,
be
I'm excited
taking
about it.
place in those 3 days that the teachers are making up in service time, and that,
the June ones.
the June
Absolutely.
15th, 16th, and 17th, so there's an opportunity for you to,
I have more than enough PD to go.
I know.
I mean, we just got to look at what is our final schedule, what is our time,
Yeah.
what are the district-wide needs versus the building level needs.
Right.
Yeah, I'm stacked and loaded probably for 3 years of training to get instruction.
Great.
You know, where we need to bring it.
But not only that, even your scheduling dynamic, I mean, if you implement this for next year and you see it needs to be tweaked for the following year, that's not.
Right.
It's not stagnant, right? It's dynamic.
I'm very impressed with your analysis for
Thank you.
being on site. for
Good.
me.
Well, I have to give credit, you know,
It's
Megan
very
helped a ton with a
grateful.
lot
I'm
of
grateful
stuff.
to all of you. I'm sure
So-
you all back them up. This is phenomenal.
When do you officially start, the 18th?
Yeah, I'm a couple days out yet until I officially start. Next, what is the date? Next Wednesday?
Can't imagine what we're going to get from him when he goes full time.
Well, no, I've been full-time. I just haven't started yet. But the interesting thing is that getting a lot of these meetings done with department leads and other folks has been very insightful to me to be able to get the analysis, because when I come on the 18th, I really have not sat down with the kids yet. I briefly met with the seniors the other day, but once I get here, then I want to sit down, have each class meeting, and talk about a host of things with those guys. So now my schedule will start to open up a little bit, because it's been pretty intense for us for a couple of days, which is good. It's good, healthy work.
Well, now you've talked to two.
They will be going out and texting and tweeting.
Well, it's all good news we're talking about tonight, and that's something I'd like to mention before moving on to the original topic of tonight. It's how disappointed I am that more members of the public aren't here, especially in light of the last meeting where I specifically told everybody at the meeting about some of the great things we're doing in this committee to enhance education and expand curriculum. And I think it's very disappointing that people come out to complain, but they don't come out to help solve problems at these meetings. So hopefully if people are listening to the tape, we'll see you at the next meeting. But moving on, after that little rant, previous discussions never finalized. Now, Mr. Martino typed up a list and he gave it to me. I don't know if it was at the last meeting or the meeting before, of topics which we've discussed in this committee, but we haven't really come to a firm resolution in regard to how we want to move forward. Some of them, maybe we've kind of given.
Relevant anymore and removed.
Well, let's see. Let's just go through them. Some of them might be. In light of the conversation we just had, I think a lot of the issues are taken care of. The first item, combining study halls to better utilize staff. From what we understand, next year we won't have study halls, so that won't be an issue.
One off the bucket list.
Yeah. Next.
Let me ask Jenny while she's here, though. I've heard, and I heard again today, we have no study halls in middle school. But then I heard we have study halls in
No,
middle school.
they're called IHT, so they're study hall. It was mainly because when foreign language got taken out and we didn't have, there was a cultural exploration piece and the foreign language, their kids needed a place to go, and when we lost the library in halftime, that was a class. So that was what happened in the schedule when those pieces disappeared. They didn't really know what else to do with them, so there's a study hall, which is called IHT.
What's that an acronym for?
So individual help time. So the kids are in a classroom, so it's a small setting with a teacher, and they can get help when they're in there. So that's
What are they doing when they're not seeking help? Like just doing homework?
it's
or
study hall.
study
I
hall.
mean,
Okay.
it's,
I just think
it's
what
study hall. It's just in a small.
is that
setting.
6 to 8?
Yes.
Oh wow! So every
They don't have it every day. I think my 6th graders have it twice a cycle. 7th graders have it once a cycle, I think, and 8th graders have it twice a cycle.
I remember back when I was in middle school, I
It's
believe.
relatively new.
Okay, we had something called IHT when I was there. It might have been different. I remember we read a book on Daniel Boone, and that was, yeah.
Is that what that curriculum was? I heard that
I
was
remember
Well, you
in
may have
6th
done
grade.
that in 6th grade, that would make sense because all the 6th graders did the Daniel Boone. You did the whole Daniel Boone thing, so that would
Okay.
make sense because you only have it with teachers in your grade level. So
Yeah,
It
and
would have
I-
made sense if they would have
I think-
had you do Daniel Boone stuff while you were in there.
Okay, because I remember the acronym IHT, and we had a little novel we read, and then we did questions. and
Yeah, I mean, the teachers are generally knowledgeable about what you're doing, although you may not have a teacher who's on your team.
Okay.
But if there's a grade level activity like that, then yes, it could be something like that.
Right.
Yes, I would love to get rid of it.
Good.
I was just
So
gonna
I
ask,
will,
I mean, you
I mean,
said they
especially
can
if they're
get
getting
help.
rid of it in the high school, it seems silly for me to have it, so I guess I need to look at that.
But because you just said.
No, thank you.
You said they can get help, the question becomes, do they get help? You know,
Yeah,
and then some of that comes back to,
Right.
do they want help?
Mhm.
But now you're back to a teacher-student ratio. You said they're in a small group, but you've got a teacher with that small group.
Mhm. Yeah, the study halls are anywhere from 20 to 30, so they're in a classroom with a teacher as opposed to being back in the auditorium or.
So what exactly
In a
did
large
you
group
achieve by
instruction.
cutting the language out? How did you get a savings from that?
Two teachers.
Because I don't think we looked at,
They
do
were
we,
just reassigned to a teacher who's
when we
not certified
abolished
to
something,
teach.
Carol, I don't think we abolished the human resource part. We abolished the class and we kept the person.
We got rid of the people that are teaching that, but they, from what I
other
understand,
people who have free
reading,
periods.
8th grade reading went into place.
That's
But-
what happened.
Well,
And
that's what happened
on
in
cultural
8th grade.
exploration.
In 8th
So it's the
when-
7th grade.
The
piece.
first thing that happened
Like,
was, if you want the background on that, the first thing that happened was there was a cultural exploration. We were teaching German, French, etc.
For 7th grade.
Not Latin. And the long and the short of it is there was a staffing reduction, and so then it was turned into a cultural explorations class that was not good. That was not a real good class because you had a Spanish teacher teaching French and trying to teach about French culture, and that was not a good situation there. So then that was eliminated, and they created the reading class as a filler class that we had in 8th grade. Yes, and that's what happened.
But 7th grade still had a hole.
I do want to have a
In seventh grade,
larger
I won't say.
conversation about foreign language
Yes, I do too.
involving Mr. McKnight in particular
Let me just finish with what I was saying with Jenny. So
at a later.
if you can model what the high school is doing and maximize your classes and eliminate
Yeah, I would love to do that.
the
so.
extraneous stuff.
I have direction now, I can do that.
All right,
Thank you.
good.
Well, it's, as we set up, meeting, we're meeting
Yeah.
twice a month, to talk about secondary level,
Mhm.
alignment, agreement,
Right, exactly.
bounce ideas off each other, so that's where we're heading, and that we have that plans.
All right. Next up, and how I want to just move forward for the rest of the meeting is just kind of reading each bullet point, and then we can have a discussion, hopefully come to some type of conclusion if we need to. Next up is high school and middle school enrollment per class. I know at the high school level, this has been discussed a little bit with the different levels of courses, and we now that we have the policy sent out by Mr. Basil, I mean, it's very clear that classes with fewer than 10 students.
Well, I think what Preston discussed and if Jenny models that should take care of the class sizes. I mean, they need to put together what they're going to do so we can see it.
Yeah.
But
So-
what I'm hearing should resolve
Yeah.
eliminating the classes with 6 people in it.
The goal will be, and you don't always meet your goal, but
With
the goal will be to have all the minus 10s out, and then only special exceptions will be delivered to you guys to make a decision that what you want to do.
Which would most likely probably be an AP class, right?
That's what I would think, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that
I don't
is
see what other
numbers.
class should run under 10. I can't, I'll have to see when we look at the schedule.
Yep.
But I don't know why that would happen, so we'll see more.
Back to the middle school for a second. The 5th grade suggested class size, the maximum is 26 kids in the 5th grade. And then you get into 6th grade and you've got classes with 17 kids in there, and I don't understand why we wouldn't have those classes at least the size of the 5th grade
Well,
classes.
and what I tried to explain with the middle school concept is that they're in teams. So the kids are broken up into 3 separate kind of groupings. So,
You need to change the concept.
well, but then it's not a middle school. So, so that's why I was saying in my explanation that I gave that if it was a junior high model, now you would have a much more open concept where kids could be plugged into a bunch of different holes as opposed to only this small set because they have to stay on the team. And
We're gonna
that's
have
the
to have
issue that comes across with
Discussion on that.
But
IHT.
if you look at our scores.
The way that our middle school schedule is now, the kids are in their cores for certain periods of the day, and then they have 2 periods when they go to encores. Well, that encore time is when the IHT fits in. So technically, unless I revamp the entire schedule, instead of, if I get rid of IHT, they're going to have to go to an encore, and I'm going to have to fit them into an encore somewhere and have more encore time for the people that I have. So it's complicated. That's why I said to you, I apologize if I gave you too much explanation and everything that I gave you.
My question becomes, and I said this to Mrs. Torsia today, that I think from a layperson's perspective, I think you're overcomplicating it. Not just you, I think the administration is overcomplicating scheduling. I mean, we just said we could simplify high school scheduling, and we could simplify elementary school scheduling.
Right.
But
Well,
oh my God, middle school is
Well, and that's just because
horrific.
they don't have teams. The middle school concept is in teams, so it's different
And the merits of that
than a
are the
high school
scores?
where
Well,
kids can go
it's just-
all different places for 9
Maybe
periods
Rob
of the
can
day,
speak
and
to
in
it
my
better.
school they can't, just because of the way a middle school's set up.
Yeah.
That's all.
A middle school philosophy, which is the basis of our middle school, is we have a interdisciplinary teaming concept where the teachers are subject matter experts, but what the teams do is they create smaller learning environments for the students where all the kids have the same group of teachers. And the goal is that the students get to know the teachers and the students to get to know each other. What you look at from a middle school model, the way it's set up, basically what we're trying to do is transition kids from an elementary school model where they were with single teachers
So
up until a high school
You're 20
model.
kids with the same teacher all periods in elementary.
Yeah.
Then you get to the team where now you have a group, and then the high school they just kind
They're
of
all over the place. That's exactly
And
what
as
the
we
model
get
set
to
up.
late elementary, we start to introduce some of those concepts. 4th and 5th grade,
But-
you'll see some of those changes starting to take place where they'll have multiple teachers, maybe 2 or 3, but not as many as a whole
And that's a
team.
working, kind of efficient model.
When you
other
bring the
than
6th graders
economic.
up into 7th and 8th grade opposed to having 7th and 8th and 9th grade, 7th, 8th, and 9th has always traditionally been a junior high school model. When schools started to move away from that model, moving 9th grade to the high school because of their ability to participate in PIAA sports at the high school level, and schools started to bring 6th grade into that, grade level to 7th and 8th grade, the middle school teaming concept has taken place. And I would have to say that that is why our middle schools and most middle schools that have a middle school concept have very strong scores at that middle level, because of the way that they're approaching instruction with the students.
Think about it as a school within a school. Like, for example, there are 3 teams at the 6th grade level. Each team has, say, 100 kids on there, and all the teachers get to know those individual kids. The kids get to know each other. The teams have common sets of expectations, like, okay, how we organize our lockers, how we put our names on
And
papers,
this
and our
is from
rules.
like an emotional maturity level as well.
Right. It's most difficult transition time or group of kids to work with. By far, our most difficult bus problems are 7th and 8th grade buses because, just developmentally, they're starting to change. Their bodies are changing. There's behaviors that are going on, and there's a lot of students within that building. There's 800 and some kids, currently, there. So.
I know
don't think we
I
wanna mess
come
with the
across as
school
a
right now.
contrarian, but what I'm hearing is, oh, this is the way Daniel Boone does it. And I look at our scores, Rob and Jimmy, and out of 500 school districts, our scores are about middle of the pack. So I don't know that we're always using the best practices. And what I'm hearing is we're not even really willing to look at changing this, because this is the way we do it.
Well, I'm willing to look at changing it. I'm not saying that I'm not. It's just that we're a middle school, so a middle school is set up this way. So if you're thinking that you want to go to a junior high model, then
See, to me, that's semantics. Middle
that's
school,
different.
junior high, I'm talking 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. That's what I'm
Right.
talking.
right.
So the semantics of,
and
oh,
I
like,
understand where
this
you're
is a
coming
middle
from,
school,
too.
or this is a junior high, I'm looking at how it's set up, not the term.
Right. But when okay.
But what they're saying is the term actually is the definition
the-
of how.
But it really isn't.
And
You
it
can
fits
teach
the-
7th grade as 7th grade,
Some.
not, it doesn't have to fit into that block, I don't think.
Well, I think this could be a topic of discussion
Let's move on.
at a future date. Not to, I mean, the topic
You
here.
wanna finish this?
No, the topic was high school slash mid. Hold on.
Go on about it.
No, the topic was HS middle school enrollment per class, and I mean, talking about the whole team situation isn't really enrollment. So in terms of this topic, I think we're good.
All right, I agree.
All right, you're not on the committee.
Yes, I am. I haven't voted, but I'm on the committee. I'm still
You're
here.
out voting.
Yeah, can we vote to move on? Can we get a vote?
To move on.
I'm still here.
We vote to
17
move
kids
on.
in a class.
What I want to do, I want to have a conversation about the team stuff, and I think we should have a discussion about the setup of the middle school, but that should be a topic at a future meeting.
Well, and you know what, I mean, not to add fuel to the fire, but that's, you know, with the topic of a school closing,
Yeah.
so then do we go to a junior high model? That could be the whole.
This could be a part of that discussion,
Well, in a
too.
lot of school districts, like, for example, Fleetwood, their 5th grade functions on a completely different schedule than the rest of their building. So that's the way that they handle that.
Right, I
can't say
remember
that they all
some of the
do that, but I
information
know
that
stuff, yeah.
Andrew sent out about the moving the 5th to middle school. They said that, you know, they disconnected the bell system in one part of the school for that
Yeah.
5th grade, so that they're still with the one teacher,
Yeah.
and there's no,
Interesting.
you know,
Mhm.
bell periods.
And that doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it. I just know that that's how some schools approach it, that they're still separate.
Well, we will have time for that at a future meeting to get more details. I want to move on here to clubs, item number 3. List of all clubs at the high school and middle school, enrollment per club, teacher assigned, and stipend paid. I believe that information was requested by the committee at one point in the past, and we didn't get it. Again, this is Rich's list, though. If you want to add anything to
I'm
that.
allowed to talk now.
You're always allowed to talk, but let's. Do you have anything to say about the clubs and the list at the high school and middle school and the stipend?
List, I haven't really-
We just want the list.
I had a question about that, because I went back and checked our approvals, and I saw that only some clubs were approved back in June when we do the approvals, and they got, you know, the heads were specified in their remuneration. But what about the rest of the clubs? Are there like clubs in perpetuity that they just automatically renew every year, or?
I'd have to let the
So
people that
I know a
work
couple of
more
mine,
directly with the clubs speak
Like,
to
for
that.
example, the middle school stage crew, that was something that we didn't have anyone for quite a while, and then that just got approved maybe 2 months ago or something like that, when finally somebody decided they were going to do it. And a lot of my clubs don't have a stipend or anything. It's just a teacher who,
Okay,
out of the
so-
goodness of their heart, does You Be the Chemist or
So
math
those,
counts
we
or
never
whatever.
get
So-
a notification of those then, because there isn't?
I think that's accurate. If we're not paying
Well, we're
for,
curriculum instruction,
yes,
we should know.
and that's the
what
question that we're
And
going
they're
to
on
figure
my
out
list that
tonight.
I submitted, they're on that.
Okay.
So it's not, so they exist, I mean, this is.
Okay, so you're going to get that
We
to
did submit
us?
it,
I'll
I know
send it right
Debbie
to you.
submitted it quite a while ago.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we'll get the list of the clubs that are not just paid, but also
And I also want to know if
unpaid.
they're exclusive or inclusive. I understand the green team, you have had to have an invitation to join the green team.
And that's not a club. I don't want to even
Well,
call it a club.
we want the information.
Is
Do
it
we
a
want
club?
information like that? That's
We were told it was a club.
Yeah, I think it was a club. It was developed as, well, probably club is stretching. It was developed as an enrichment activity, is basically what it was developed as, to give students with a keen interest in science, much like Preston was talking about, a chance to really go above and beyond what they get in the classroom.
So it does take place during class day or after
No,
class,
after.
like a club?
Yeah, say after.
so clubs and quasi clubs, I guess, would be a way to describe the information we're
Well,
looking
yeah.
for.
And
Whether
if
it's
there's a fee or
exclusive,
not a fee and what the
yeah,
fee
if there's a
is.
fee. So what essentially we're looking for, I guess, is just
Just the
a lot of
transparency.
information about these clubs. If they're board approved, if there's a stipend associated with it.
And a mission statement, what's the point of the clubs?
Yeah, we need to know what they do.
There should be some sort of founding documents or some sort of introductory documents that go out to parents when they approve the kids being in them.
Well, even that, what is the approval
What is
process
the
for
approval?
joining a
That's what I'm
club?
saying,
Our
find out
parents,
the whole-
because my experience in the high school is that if you want to be a club, you go to the introductory meeting, you talk to the teacher, maybe, well, you have to pay the activity fee, you're in the club. And if we're having people pay the activity fee, then I guess it's easier for us to get the information as to what clubs they're in, because you have to pay the activity fee for most clubs. I'd also be interested to see what happens at some of the clubs. For example, high school newspaper, we pay I think $3,000 something stipend. How many editions do we expect them to put out? That type of information.
If they don't have like mission statements or goals, they should
write
formulate
one.
them.
Yeah.
Well,
So
our mission statements required with our clubs?
no.
I don't think so.
That's what I'm saying.
At the very least, a description of what they do. I think this is also, I know we're supposed to be tying these things up, but it seems like in trying to do that, we're creating more questions.
Well, I have one question for you, Ken. You just said this one club was unofficial until it just got approved.
No, that's not.
It was non-existent, she said.
We didn't have an advisor.
The position
But it
was
was stage approved, so it's really just
Right.
the
At the
person
time
who-
of the June approvals, I've seen that all
Yeah,
through the
yeah,
year, that
Yeah, we
the
just
coach,
had no
there
one
were
doing it
coaches for all the
months,
spring
and it-
sports, so as they got
Right,
them,
right.
it was sort of like an
And it didn't
addendum
really make
to
a
the
difference
original.
because you guys are
It
now
didn't.
having your meetings here, so until we had the play and
Right,
things like that,
right,
it
right.
didn't matter. So.
I mean, I could tell you one personal example. When I was in high school, I thought we should have a debate club. I was interested in having debates and learning about debate, and I had a conversation with the principal about this, and I asked, how do I start a club? And one of the issues was stipends in the contract, and if you have a position in the contract, it needs to be paid for. Thankfully, a friend and I found a teacher, and we were very grateful, who was willing to advise us. And he didn't want a stipend, he just wanted to help out. And to this day, I'm very thankful that he agreed to do that. But that club was not board approved. And at the time, other clubs weren't board approved either. They were in the contract, maybe that counted as board approval because they were in the contract. But I think what we're looking for is
Well,
just a list.
Right,
of
but
those
I'm
things.
particularly interested in what that particular debate club, what's the framework? What are they debating?
Sure.
There's no objective.
I mean, I
It
can tell
was
you how it
very
worked when I
random
did
and-
it, but it was
Yeah,
random.
I think it should fit a purpose that fits with our long-term goals for growth of the children, of the students. And
Yeah, I think
They should have
the
a
whole
purpose
process
and
should be professionalized a little bit. And
goal.
sadly, so much of that comes within the context of the contract and how that is binding us in such a way that new clubs aren't really able to be formed. And I don't know, how Debate Club came to be was really the result of trying to add this, and there was a consensus from a lot of people that they wanted it without running into problems with the contract. So obviously there's some work to do there. But at the very least, this item here that Rich sent was we want a list. We want a list of all the clubs at the high school, enrollment per club, the advisor, and if a stipend is paid, and if so, how much.
And that document, you did complete that document, Mrs. George?
I
You
have
just
it
sent it
right
to
here.
us?
It's
Oh,
not
okay.
All right.
If you could resend it then, that
I
would be.
will.
All right,
I
great.
didn't see it.
So moving on then to block scheduling. We've talked about this now for years and years, and we keep talking about it. And when new people come on the committee, we talk about it. I liked what Mr. McKnight had to say tonight. It could work.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we have,
I'm
it'll
fine with
work.
that. We were just looking for efficiencies in the schedule.
Yeah, so you're fine with what?
I'm fine with letting go of block
Good, me
scheduling
too.
for now. I mean, we kind of already decided on
Yeah.
that, right?
Dave, do you have any problem? Do you want to keep talking about block?
I never got involved in a block
All right.
discussion to begin with, so
Yeah, I was done with it the first time we had the discussion, quite frankly.
I think I was the biggest advocate for it.
Okay, so we're not going to be doing block scheduling. Honors 2.0 is on here. A lot of Honors 2.0, and Honors 2.0 is my creation that I put together a few years back of how to combine some of these levels. In addition to, I had this idea that you could really, through a framework at the whole building level, you could turn any academic class into an honors class if students worked, if there were a set of projects they could complete or talking with the teacher. I'd like to have a conversation with you one-on-one about that concept at a later date, but I like...
It sounds like we did that with academic and conceptual, so
We don't need to call
I'm fine
it.
with that for now.
But yeah, a lot of condensing these levels, I think really accomplished what we wanted to do. And in combining some of these classes, we hope that the savings that we would be able to realize and being able to rearrange the schedule, we could bring in AP classes. That was the ultimate goal, and that's what you're doing. So I'm glad that's pretty much done here. Revision of history / civics curriculum, I'm assuming that's the revision of the curriculum and not revision of history. But that was something that
that's the victor, right? The victor.
Yes,
gets to
that's
do
right.
that,
Yeah. So I guess we're the victors if we're doing that. No. But the curriculum, we did want to have a discussion about that, and this was something that was only, I think, mentioned briefly at a committee meeting. Rich, I know this is something that you care a lot about. It's something I think it's something we all care a lot about, ensuring that civics are taught in our school. And I know just from my own personal experience as a 2012 Daniel Boone graduate, I don't think we highlight civics enough at the high school level. So I'm not really sure what the solution is moving forward now that Mr. McKnight is.
Mr. McKnight
I think if he can
consider that, make a recommendation.
look into how we do
And I'll
it.
work with Ms. Kiesel about really driving in on the curriculum and what's in the content.
Good.
And I think the more we get things mapped out and transparent, not only to the board and community, where they can literally go on our website and see it. Here's what's happening. They can make some decisions, and that's for all content areas. Then people always come forward with great ideas to grow it and make it better. So that it's a process, obviously, to get the courses mapped out and post it up on the system.
Yeah.
But I think it's one worth certainly having. It just leads to more transparency and more enriched educational conversations.
Good. So
Carol and Dave, in the earlier presentation today, we brought up the fact that we think civics needs to receive more emphasis in high school. And I didn't hear a lot of disagreement now. Connor and I aren't curriculum writers, so I think that's up to you and Mary Beth Kiesel and your staff to come up with a plan to do it.
all right. So again, looking back at things we firmly decided, block scheduling we've decided not to pursue. We've decided that we'd like to just get that list again. And a lot of the other issues are taken care of because of the changes at the high school. I want to move on now to the items and questions for Mrs. Bites. And then at the very end, Dave mentioned that he wanted to bring up kindergarten and try to get some type of consensus on what we want to do in terms of planning. So I'd like to bring that up, and that would be all on the agenda for tonight. Mrs. Bites, do you want to do your questions? Would you like me to read them? Okay. First, status on testing hours research. I think this is for Mary Beth Kiesel.
Yes.
January 8th, Curriculum Instruction Committee meeting, we talked about it. Administration is reporting on total hours spent in testing hours per grade, per year, and making recommendations for change if possible. Include schedule of PSSA, Keystones, all CDTs, PVAS, and other assessments. Do you have?
Yes,
okay.
I'm prepared to speak to that. Pursuant to that meeting on January 8th, Mrs. Bites, I met with the elementary principals, and as a matter of fact, it was almost the next day or something because I was excited to look into that. And so what we did was look at our elementary assessment schedule and streamlined it a little bit, and we went through each assessment, and I have copies for everyone.
Like,
No.
you got to share your meeting.
No copy for you.
I believe they're on the elementary assessment schedule is on the last page of your handout.
I'm
We
going
have
to have
enough-
it yet, because we're still waiting.
Okay. I did snap that.
This is why I should have handed out the papers.
Well, I assume we had enough.
Here's another. Okay, I'll share.
Good.
And
No, I was in the meeting, so. Like, I know.
so what we did was discuss each assessment that we give and the purpose that we give it, and just also discuss, is this something we really feel we need to continue at this time, or maybe we don't need it because the subject of too much testing did come up. So we really did look at this, and we believe that these assessments are all necessary and valuable. Some of the assessments are very brief assessments, such as DIBELS. They're really just 1-minute probes that we give. And some of them are mandated by the state, so we really don't have a choice regardless of what we think. The Ames Web is what we use to measure progress in special education. And they are also brief probes that teachers give. If you notice on the schedule, it tells you how often we give the test, when we give the test, and what the purpose is. The DRA Fountas and Pinnell benchmark is, well, the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark is taking the place of what we call the DRA, and that's a reading assessment that we give in grades kindergarten through 5th grade twice a year. That assessment takes about 30 to 45 minutes, so it's a little bit of a lengthy assessment. It is one-on-one, but it gives a lot of good information that teachers can use for instruction. The COGAT test, is everybody following along? Okay. The COGAT test is a test that we use for child find in 2nd grade. It takes about 3 hours on 1 hour a day for 3 days. And we use that a lot of times to locate students who we believe have higher abilities and possibly we want to screen them further for the gifted program.
Approximately how many students will take that test?
All of the second graders.
It's a child find tool to identify students that may not be looked at as being gifted.
And what's Child Find?
Child Find is where we have a responsibility of finding children who are not only struggling learners but are also
What is title?
part of, it's chapter 14 is special education, chapter 16 is gifted.
So it's Pennsylvania.
And we wait, of course, to give the COGAT until after the PSSAs are given, just so we're not administering so many tests at the same time, even though 2nd graders don't take the PSSA test. The Study Island benchmark test is a test we give 3 times a year. If you notice there, in May it says optional, where if teachers want to give it, some teachers use it as a kind of a instructional piece or a practice or review. Some teachers like to look and see how they believe their kids have progressed through the year by giving it in May at the end of the year to measure learning.
So is Study Island a measure of the child's progress or of alignment with the testing that they're going to be in? My understanding of that was how far we were on track with actually getting our kids ready for.
Go ahead. Study Island. I've done a lot of work with Study Island, so over the years in many places. Study Island has 2 components. Okay, the benchmark assessment, okay, which acted similar to the old Foresight, if that means anything to you, but you can administer it usually a baseline to start the school year, and then at other selected times throughout the school year. So you were seeing growth for the student against performance against the state test. So that's by and large what it does. There's also another element for kids who, let's say you taught the concept, and now these students did not grasp the concept. There's a component to it that allows you to differentiate for them and take them back and work in those areas to grow them and bring them up forward. Did I do all right?
Yes, thank you. So it does accomplish some different things. And we do Study Island benchmarking test at the elementary level. We also do it at the middle school level, and we are beginning to do it for the first time at the high school level. And
I just want to jump in on that piece because as we unfold that, we've had, was literature today? They did not give a midterm exam this year because of, there were some complications in how the course is taught and where it can be measured, and there were different things going on, as they explained it to me. And one of the things to reduce, because I'm concerned, everybody's concerned about the number of assessments that students take, particularly in 8th and 11th grade. They're the big, and I guess 5th also at the elementary level. So the conversation we're currently having is no midterm on those keystone courses and using the Study Island assessment to measure where we are in that progress of that course. So that's just pulling one more, it's an exchange, but it's not an add-on. So just to give you that kind of reference.
And I believe that we were one of the few districts in the county that were not doing benchmark testing at the high school level up until Mr. Knight joined us. So
high school teachers, it's an interesting dynamic, with that piece. I've had that struggle elsewhere, and to bring that forward it's tough. I just don't think it's essential to what they do. But as I explained to the guys and ladies today, that though we may not like teaching the state test until boards can get it to go away with the governor, it's a disservice to the students to not help them pass that test. I would love for it to all go away for all of us, give them all that extra assessment play. That let a student go all year long without knowing where they are in their progression is really not
Yeah.
a good practice for the state.
We're setting ourselves up to just to remediate the child and then
Right.
put it back in at the next year too, so.
And dishearten the student, quite
And
frankly.
dishearten them.
Because I think the other piece that we'd like to gain from the Study Island doing these assessments is not ever really let students sit for the real keystone until they show they're ready.
Mm.
You know, because throwing them into a
Right.
test and then having them crash and burn,
Right.
it's
Right.
just, it steals their faith, you know, in what they're doing.
And prior to the implementation of Study Island, that was the only scores we had that were actually normed to be accurate assessments and data besides what was created locally or by the companies and whatnot. So this actually will give us data to be able to move forward. So it's one of those that we don't have to do that anymore.
Usable data.
Right.
Exactly.
In real time data, I think, you know, is what Dane's saying. It's like, you're getting this live time, instead of, you know, PSSA, which happened way back in spring the year before, you're trying to make decisions off that,
Right.
you're getting real time data.
And that's for all three of the Keystone
Yes.
required testing?
Yes.
Because the data can be applied to that student's education. right
Immediately,
then,
right, I get it.
you know,
And we built-
rather than later.
Right, and we built an entire model where the teachers will help keep themselves advocates in understanding where they are and how they go forward. There's, you know, the state doesn't do a lot of good things, but occasionally they get some right, honestly. And there's a metacognition form at the state on these keystone areas, which engages the teacher and the student in a one-on-one conversation about where they are and what they can do and collaborate on ideas to move forward. So it's a productive thing. So the teachers are doing it. Will be doing it. Not are.
Thank you. The next test says NAEP. I believe that stands for National Assessment for Educational Progress.
Yes. Yes.
And NAEP. And that's the test that Amity was randomly chosen. Those students were randomly chosen to take that test.
We had no choice.
What-
Do we get any extra money for it? That random?
No, they don't give you anything.
And they don't even give us
At
the
the high
results of it.
school,
So,
like,
isn't that
where
nice?
they're administered twice.
They give you a few proctors to
What?
come in.
What is it, who compels
How
us
much
to do
time will
this?
they be
Department of
spending in that?
Education?
They've already taken it.
Or is this not something we want to be chosen for? Like,
Federal government mandate.
Do they get free pens?
Just a day.
Zero.
You
How
get
many
the-
hours
you
would
get
they spend in
proctors,
that?
and it's
1.5,
1.5 hours?
90 minutes.
Yeah. And they took it on February 23rd, correct? And what it does is, it feeds into national statistics, which represent our country, and comparing how our country is
Right.
doing
Okay.
with other countries in the world.
When you see the data about how we stack up against Singapore
Yep.
and Sweden.
Yep.
So it's our
that's where-
That's where I'm seeing that, yeah.
all right.
So we're hoping they did pretty well on
We're
it.
representing
That's what I told the
America.
kids. I said, "Your Team USA today."
All right.
They were fired up about it.
That's good. Now, when do we find out if we're going to be participating in that each year? Like, how many schools do it? Is
That's
this like a once in a
random.
lifetime
It's
deal?
random.
The Birdsboro was
Statistical
This
sample.
summer they said it was
Okay.
right.
It's a
Because I'm just
statistical
wondering, in
sample.
terms of getting this information out to the public, when is the testing schedule finalized?
This testing schedule has been posted on each of the elementary school websites
Okay.
for parents, and that has come up since our conversation with parents as a result of the CNI meeting
Good.
in January. So
So-
that was a positive.
That they wanted it posted.
Yes.
Some of the feedback or complaints we've heard from parents is there's too much assessment. Now, this explains all the assessment, but is this all mandatory? And is this all necessary?
This is what they've deemed.
Not
They
all.
already
Yes.
cut some out, you're saying,
We
right?
did,
They already
and
cut
this
some
is
out.
what we believe, and most of these are mandated by the state. Some of them give us data that we need to measure how our kids are responding to our instruction. So you don't want to just teach and teach and teach, not knowing how kids, you know, if kids are learning or not.
Just if you would, and we don't need to have a future meeting on it, but can you send an email to the board on what assessments you've cut out?
Sure.
I'd just be curious to see what we're
And
going to do.
which ones are the required one and which ones are we using to measure the child? Because I'm not,
I think Study Island's
I'm
pretty
not
much
sure
the one
about
that we
that.
use to measure.
And again, this is on the website. It does say the purpose.
Right,
Give
that's
the
good.
purpose, state the purpose
well,
to
what are the
parents.
CDTs that I hear referred to?
CDTs we do not use. We do not
Okay.
employ
What
CDTs.
is-
A lot of
okay.
districts do. They stand for Classroom Diagnostic Tools. And I believe the state, it offers these tests that you can give online to your students to see how they're progressing.
Is it like
The
you're gonna get a bunch
state
of
tests.
laptops?
The only advantage, well, no, I shouldn't say the only advantage. An advantage to them is they're free. We pay for other.
Well, I mean, free
Yeah.
to take them, but it's a loss of instructional
right.
time.
Absolutely.
That's why, don't forget the genesis of this is that I discovered that some schools were spending, the kids were spending between 80 and 100 hours a year in testing. When you consider the 180-day school year, 45 minutes of class,
Yeah.
that was startling to me, so I wanted to start.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, that was a complaint here, that there's too much time spent.
I think that was the whole, impetus for this.
And it does, if you're,
Start
we're looking at this,
that.
this is
And
just
they have.
elementary,
They
and
start-
there
yeah,
are a
and I
lot.
appreciate it.
We
I
did,
do.
and we
I appreciate
also
it.
decided this is something we need to revisit every year and that it should
Yep.
be a living document.
Yep.
All right.
And then the last thing is the PSSA, and that test takes approximately 6 to 7 hours. That's the average for the PSSA.
Over 3 days, did I hear?
No, over 3
That's
weeks.
3 weeks.
Oh, so that's
The-
one of the reasons why there's this belief out there that we're doing so much testing,
Yes.
because it's such a spread out
Right.
window.
There's a window. Now, the ELA, which is combined reading, English, language arts, writing, that portion takes 3 hours and 20 minutes. The math portion takes about two and a half hours. So ELA is 1 week, and then the following week is math, and that's for grades 3, 4, and 5. In addition, 4th grade has the science PSSA, which takes an hour and 40 minutes, and that's the 3rd week.
And that's where our scores could use some work, science, right? Okay.
Yes,
Is that 4th and 8th grade?
4th and 8th grade.
Biology is really where the scores need to be. Typically, our science scores aren't too bad.
We're okay there, high school.
Now, I know this is elementary, but I know the high school, I think maybe it was just was gearing up. But I know that the Keystone exams, like my kids were like, well, we're not doing anything because they took the Keystone already, but other kids in their class didn't take the Keystone.
Yeah.
So, but that should be worked out, right?
Yeah, there's a delineation between 2017 students and before. So now, the 2017 kids need to graduate, as we know, and you can pack it like a suitcase. Think of it like a suitcase. So if you pass it in 8th grade, which some kids can pass the Keystone Algebra in 8th grade, that goes in the suitcase. Okay? We no longer have a test after this year, all the 11th grade, everybody. You can start to do this end of course isolation type testing. So it depends on when kids take the test. So it's not quite as invasive as it is for PSSA for those guys, which is a good thing. So, that's pretty much how it works. Then they don't count your SPP at the high school until all of those kids get to be a junior. That's when it counts for your building score. Even if they pass that test in 8th grade, it just sits in that suitcase in 9th grade, 10th grade, and then 11th grade, it all gets populated.
Good, okay, thank you.
And the next page is actually the middle paper. It's just a little paper on the Keystone exams. And gives you a little bit of information about it. There are 2 modules for each test. The Keystones takes approximately 3 hours.
That's an untimed test, though, can't the kid
They can
truthfully take it as long as they
They-
want?
yes.
They could be 6 hours, they could, kid,
Yeah,
Once-
the state is the same.
Yeah,
I've heard about some horror stories with them too,
Extended
where the
time
kids are
until
starting
they
to
finish.
rebel against them, drawing little smileys and
Now
keying
they-
on. Honor students fail it the first time, so they're a little bit
And now
rebellious.
it counts for graduation. That may have happened before, but now the weight of them is more on them than it was before.
They did some trial runs and stuff, and some schools started to adopt it a little.
Additionally,
start ramping up.
you may, I think it was Lower Marion, probably about a month ago, had a big revolt about people and parents opting out of the test.
Yeah.
I did talk to the state because we were starting to feel some of that in my previous district. So I called the state on that. There is no opt-out. There's only a religious reason opt-out, but there's no other philosophical differences. I don't agree. That does not exist.
Right.
So we will be penalized for kids who don't do it. The student will be penalized as well.
Right.
One parent came up and said that you could sign a petition to opt out of Common Core, which that is completely false information as well. I'm not really sure where they're gathering that from, but we did go to the heads at the IU who are really involved with it, and they're like,
Right.
there's nothing that has, even remotely come down the line. So if they're maybe misconstruing that
Right.
part about opting out of the test. But a lot of superintendents are making parents that want to opt out of the test to sit in front of them, and Rob's actually been doing it with the parents and saying exactly why, and more or less lie to my face, I guess, if you're really not doing it for a real religious reason. So
My understanding is they just have to say that it's for religious reasons. You really can't force them to explain it.
well, because it really.
I would just be careful with that, because that's my understanding of it.
So if you just say, God, I don't want to take this test.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to sign an affidavit.
And you're supposed to review the test.
You have to
Yeah,
review it.
and many are trying to opt out without doing some of the processes, so that's, yeah.
I just want to make sure we're following the process.
Oh, no, we are,
It's
but-
the letter of the law. So
Yeah.
If they want religious exemption, we have to grant it.
Yeah,
That's correct.
we know that, but it's a difficult pill to swallow sometimes because,
Well, I think we're okay up to 15%, right?
well, I think
10% of the
anyone,
population
I
would
think
not
really,
be-
I don't think that that's clear either. I think that,
Okay.
It's 5%.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
I think it's 5.
5%.
Yeah.
And it does hurt us in the end if students opt out, because we are graded on participation as well as, how well we do.
I'm still trying to figure out what these tests actually accomplish.
We don't know.
I think we all are.
Yeah. We're on board with that.
All right. Or can we move on to the next topic, Mrs. Bites? Your next question, status of offering.
PSSA. Okay, so that's the pressure that I think I'm hearing the parents feeling. This 3 weeks, the PSSAs, teachers are saying, get a good night's sleep, let's have candy. Can we, make a district-wide commitment to either finding out if that works for the majority of our parents or not? Because the parents I'm hearing are saying there's way too much emphasis on it. It should be just like, this is your day, you're going to work today, take your lunch kettle. It should be just like every other day and stuff, and take some of the pressure off the kids
We
as
can
far
certainly
as
let
trying to
staff
artificially
know that-
inflate the scores, I guess.
Well, I remember when I took PSSAs in elementary school, it was really exciting. We got a little little baggie, and we had a whole pack of Mentos in there, and we got water
the
bottles.
PTC comes in and puts a little pack together so that they have tissues, they have Mentos, that that it's not meant to be so overwhelming. We're right now at the elementary level. We've put together, or they've put together a video, trying to create some excitement to it. It's more or less, taking Taylor Swift's song of "Shake It Off" and just shake off the whole testing thing and have fun with it. And they've been involved in creating the vibe of it. We try to give them a little bit of snack, just make it a little bit more relaxed so that they're not feeling such pressure. And we do obviously want them to have a good night's sleep. We don't want them up all night playing video games, and that's really
Thinking back to when I did it, I think the snacks and all of that stuff, it made it more into something to be anticipated. rather
They
than
do some
something to dread.
exercises, some different calisthenics. Teachers, all have like a little bit different approach because they know the kids are going to be sitting and having to, try to concentrate and making sure they have things to do when they're done with the test. Do you have your books? Do you have colors? So they.
Because there's no instruction over those 3 weeks then at all?
No, there is.
There is.
And
Once the
that's the thing,
testing's
they're
done,
testing
then
60
they
minutes
go
out
to
of
their
that
regular
day.
schedule.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah.
They start out with the test first thing in the morning, and then they get on with the regular
Yeah.
schedule.
They have recess, they have lunch. We try to make sure they have all of those things. In fact, with, the teachers, the administration, works really hard to try to make sure that they have their special at some point in their day, so that if they would have been robbed of that they're getting at least a portion of it. So we try to normalize the day as much as possible in the amount of time we have. Yeah.
All right, Mrs. Bites, can we move on to question number 2? Okay, question number 2, status of offering AP courses online. There was a suggestion that this might be a contract issue.
I would yield that to Mr. McKnight if that's an option.
And Rob did a lot of work
Pursuing-
on that.
There's a couple things, and certainly chime in, and you have some experiences with this. We talked to a couple different groups. We can certainly expand the learning opportunities for kids through the online courses. There are online courses available. I spoke with a couple different vendors, including Pearson. They have a group called GradePoint. There's a group called Apex that I spoke with also. There's also a group called Fuel Ed that I spoke with, as well as a Middlebury Foreign Language Group, Rosetta Stone, and EduSeer. There are some different things that we can do. We can offer AP courses. They can give us the curriculum to do it online. These companies will work with us to do that. However, there's costs associated with these things, which we need to be aware of. There also potentially could be some union issues, which would have to be worked through also with these particular groups. But the long and the short of it is there's some different companies we're looking at right now. I'd like to collaborate with Preston on this particular piece and the high school people, because it would be a lot focused on them. But there's some groups that are intriguing, and there's some interesting opportunities. I certainly think in this day and age, I think we've all taken online courses that there's some value for certain kids there, especially if we can't offer, say a kid wants to take Arabic, or a kid wants something unusual like that. I think there's a lot of potential in those areas for them. I think we need to explore, how we can pay for it through grants, or through, maybe it's a cost we can pass on to the students. We have to check with our solicitor in regards to that. Those are all possibilities. And again, we need some, he just started, so we need some time to work through some of those things. But we're making progress along those lines. There's also, there's site licenses available. Like, for example, at the middle school, if they don't have a foreign language at the middle school, like the Rosetta Stone will offer a site license for the middle school to open that up. So there's some possibilities here that we can work on, and we still got to work through these things, but that's the progress we've made so far.
All right. Okay. Just a quick housekeeping note. I want to finish this meeting by 8, if possible, if there's no objection.
You have something going on tonight?
No, I just think other people might have other stuff going on tonight. Wish I had stuff going on tonight.
Thank you. You're telling me that I'm going to get bumped.
My dogs, thank you.
Yeah, I think I can sense a little bit of when's this going to end.
Are we allowed to vote aye on that?
Sure, that's a unanimous vote. Okay, yeah, I think when it comes to those AP classes, I know you could take the AP test regardless of whether or not you take the course, and I wish I availed myself of that opportunity, and I think a lot of students would if they knew they could do that, and if we could maybe pass that information along.
Could we direct Mr. Hurley to get a price for the Spanish at least?
Yeah, sure. I almost wonder, are there no free resources online, like maybe homeschooled parents could have used, or like online courses set up?
I can share with you just, and I've shared this with Rob before. You can get Rosetta Stones and the Keystone catalog for $90 per student. Okay, so that's the cost that you get the state's Keystone catalog.
Could we pass that along if we wanted to offer adult learning?
If you don't mind, Rob.
I'm sorry, I just interrupted.
So previously in another life, I evolved that model, and we did two things. First of all, we had declining enrollment in language arts, so we reduced the teacher to a 0.7 because the enrollment was declining. Then we brought it back in what we called an independent study lab that she monitored in Rosetta Stone with we offered 7 languages in district. So in the memorandum of understanding, which is what we had to do with the association, is have a memorandum of understanding and bring it forward. That we then offer. There's 30 Rosetta Stone world languages. So my previous work, that district offers 30 world languages to kids for credit. So we're probably one of 2 districts in the state that did that. We can do that here, and we pass the cost on to the student at the $90. And that fee, interestingly enough, what we turned into a little revenue then was that $90, you get that license, if you will, for 1 whole year. The kids go through the course roughly in about a semester. So you can get the cost on that one, then you have it free for the next semester to put another student on if you choose to charge $90. And then in the summer, if you let students do it, so you can get, you can make $180 for every 90 you spend for kids who engage that. But more importantly, is it's this great opportunity for kids to add Farsi or Italian or Japanese to their experience in education. Yeah. And by the way, I think the library that we currently have that's not operating 3 times a day would be an excellent site for that work.
Great. All right, so still some work to do there, but it's on the agenda here. Academic centers at the high school. Mr. McKnight mentioned this in his presentation. I believe academic centers, in the context you were talking about.
I think Mrs. Weber was the one who actually mentioned it, that they were exploring it to find out the mechanism for the PBAs, the project-based assessments, right? And that was a developing. If you're still developing it, I'm fine. That's fine. I just don't want to drop. Thank you.
Okay.
Hand in hand with what we're
perfect.
Lunchroom detentions. I don't know what that refers to.
Again, it's just that
something.
we were looking
Is
for
that like-
efficiencies in the high school schedule. It came up in a conversation with Mrs. Weber as one of the ideas that they would be pursuing, and I yield to them pursuing all their options at this point. So I'm fine. I don't know any
Okay.
direct follow-up.
Well,
on
speaking
that.
of lunch, I had an idea.
We're all hungry, yeah,
Talking,
that's
well, no, I'm thinking in terms of foreign language, how cool would it be to have like a Spanish lunch where you learned, everybody spoke Spanish while eating lunch. Like you would have that immersive, I don't know if it's practical, it's not, but yes, it would be. You could learn as you eat. We were talking about, all right, fine. We're trying to innovate here, and
that's good.
okay.
So you can't get the food till you actually pronounce it properly?
Well, no, you have a table, and you have a Spanish teacher.
Come on, you gotta say
and the
French
entire,
fries in Spanish.
no, you're talking about your lives and what's going on, but you're doing it in Spanish.
That's cool.
Yes,
That's
thank
a cool
you.
idea.
Yeah, so instead you're always learning, even while you're eating lunch, and you're having fun while doing it.
Notice the women in the group like your idea, the guys do.
All right, well,
Well, I mean, food is the world language, right?
yes.
I'm just worried I won't get to eat. That's
Comida.
what I'm worried about.
I know my Spanish food too.
Oh, well, Mary Beth Keesler, I think, is volunteering. All right.
You can't have cerveza on that.
No, cerveza.
All right.
You get the Irish Day, you're in trouble.
I know.
And then the last one, I was just wondering how the sequencing was going. This is the transition year, because we had to change the order that the students, the high school kids went through algebra, geometry, and then algebra 2, but to line up with the keystones and
The data collection is soft. It's soft data, meaning that until we get the key stuff up, we won't really have firm data since we don't benchmark and get assessment data back as we're going on. But we're in tune to the issue, having conversations. Of course, the report back is it's going great. I don't know if there's any evidence or not, either way. But we're optimistic because I do think that does give kids, when you go algebra 1 and 2, some more time to get square on the assessment.
And they didn't do it that way because we had a piece, PSSAs in 11th grade. Is that the history on it?
So we PSSAs and SATs. So they wanted to have the algebra piece during the PSSA
That's
year
what
and
it
the
was.
SAT,
Yeah.
which is why they previously, in my first year,
And that's why
first
it
transition year.
changed. Got it. Okay.
Now we're transitioning.
Okay, so whether it's going well or not, I mean, it's just got to be done. Okay.
Okay, and that was on the, was that on the other?
That's it.
Okay.
Except the kindergarten.
Yeah, so
But that
kindergarten.
segues right into
Yes, we had the
practice.
presentation on kindergarten at the last meeting, and I guess I'll hand it over to Dave if you want to. Do you want to introduce?
Right, well, I mean, I just, I didn't want it to fall through the cracks, and then, because I know we're talking about teacher reductions, we're talking about potentially closing the school, but I think the full-day kindergarten comes into play there also. What I was really hoping to get for next year was that we could try and start the at-risk program. And I don't know if that was going to be one class or two classes, but that made, logically to me, it makes sense that if there are kids coming into kindergarten and not really prepared, as some of the other ones are, that we should be giving them all day to get them where they need to be. But I guess if we can decide to reduce high school in one night, maybe we can get an at-risk kindergarten in the class.
That would be huge.
We need some study on that. We need to know how would it work, how many potential kids would be.
Well, I mean, so
needing
the kids that are signing up now, I mean, when will we know how many at-risk kids will that actually potentially could have? I mean, when do they actually get tested?
I can speak to that. We would have to do some screening, and obviously we're not going to do it when is the registration next week or this week. But we would bring the children back.
Which is typically how we do it anyway.
I thought they were screened, I thought in the other presentation we learned that they were screened actually before they came to kindergarten, before they enrolled for kindergarten.
Before they do. It's between the time that we actually get our numbers registered to see how many parents are really signing their children up for kindergarten. And then as we have established that group, then we bring them back and we take care of some of the other pieces of it, getting them, to see a kindergarten classroom. Typically the school nurse, there's a speech screening. There's another time where they come together, and then prior to them starting kindergarten in the summertime, they have a kindergarten bus run so that they can see what it's like to ride a bus. So we do have interaction with them a few more times after the initial registration. Registration is just getting the parents to enroll their children in a school-age program.
And what is the date for kindergarten registration?
That starts next week.
And when
But
would you-
at any point, I believe that you would be able to add that at-risk program at any point that you were willing to identify that you wanted to have a teacher to teach a full day at risk. So we would be able to identify them, have the students identified, and then just as long as it was prior to the first day of school, we'd be able to.
So we're looking at that backwards, and we're saying, tell us how many there are, and we'll tell you whether we want to allocate the resources. And you're saying, tell us you're allocating the resources. And we'll fill the
No.
classroom.
What I'm saying is that we'll do the screening regardless. We'll tell you
Can
what
you
the
report
need
to
is,
us
and
what-
all I'm
what
saying is
you're
that
seeing in that?
you would just need to decide if you want to
Okay,
allocate the
So
resources.
you'll just bring that to us after you've completed the
Right.
testing and let us know your recommendation.
Right.
You recommend
Yeah.
1, 2, or 3,
Right.
whatever at-risk
Right.
classes.
So it would really just be being able to identify the class and then telling parents, your child has qualified for an at-risk full day.
Some parents might not.
Right.
Even want to.
And all you do is you offer to them and say that they qualified and there's going to want.
If you could let
there
us
would be-
know
right.
and what the deficiencies are that you're seeing when you're
Yeah,
making
I'd like to know
recommendations.
the logistics of doing this in terms of the cost, how many classrooms. Like I want to
We can't do
know.
that until we see
Right.
how many
Yeah.
come up in the.
I mean, I'm open to doing it next year again.
There's nothing we can do at this time, though. They're just going to bring us the numbers,
You
and
need
then we'll
data.
talk about it.
You need the data.
We need the data.
And I also
We
would
don't-
like to see a set of, I want to know what we're doing now for these students and then what we will be doing with full, because at risk, I mean, I hear at risk, I don't want to call it a buzz term because I don't think it is, or a buzzword, but what will the end result be after adding this back? How will these students benefit from having this program
Right,
that
and
they don't benefit from now?
Right.
Well, they
That would be a good
just
presentation.
benefit in being exposed to
Well,
language,
yeah, I mean,
etc.
I think that data's out there, because there are several districts that just do at-risk. So I
Okay.
think you can
Well,
go to those
that data-
districts and actually get that.
Yeah, I mean,
data
if we
from
could
them and
get that
see.
information, like for me, like I don't want it to be too esoteric almost. Like I want to
Because,
be able to
the
demonstrate.
problem we run into, and again, no offense to the presentation, was, we have a skeptical board.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to Mr. Martino and a couple of the other ones. But we need data that actually shows that there's a success factor there. If it's not there, then it's not going to get approved.
And I want to know what
That's
makes
right
it
now.
successful.
Yeah,
Is it just the
define the
function of having the
deficiencies.
students
We
with
need to
the
know what the
teacher,
deficiencies
or is
are
it? Yeah.
in the children and why we don't think they'll succeed.
So if we can get that information, I think that would be. I'd really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And
We should be
and
in-
I think in this case, I think it'll be out there because there are districts that just do the at-risk. As opposed to we were trying to, we only had the one year data set from here,
No, I think you're saying two different things. We don't want somebody else's data. We want our district.
No, I
He just wants to know what
We
they
want to know
use,
what
right.
our kids are deficient in.
No, I
What we're
want
gonna do,
I want
we're
these
not.
districts that are doing the at-risk, their data to say, does it work or doesn't work?
Yeah, quite frankly, I want both. I want that
Oh,
information, but I
okay.
also want
I
to know
hear what
where
you're
our
saying.
students specifically. Yeah, I want to know more right now about the
Right,
program
right.
itself.
Right. In our next.
And
we
how-
have an
and our
at-risk
version of the
presentation.
program.
That's what we'll be.
Because
looking
is at-risk kindergarten, is there, I know we were talking earlier about semantics in middle school versus junior high versus just being in school
Right.
from those grades, but
Right.
I want to know
So
too
we're
for
gonna
at-risk. And
evaluate-
if we just add full day kindergarten, call it at-risk, like what does that mean?
exactly.
So when we get that
Yep,
information,
that would be great.
that'll be good.
That's it.
Is that, are we good for that for now? I mean, I think we can move it.
Yeah, I think we
But
gave them a
When do you
plan.
need that information?
Well,
After you come
when you
to us
get
with the
it,
numbers.
I wanted to
You-
mention though, on that note, our next meeting, Mr. Martino mentioned that we might want to have an executive session. Is that okay for, I guess, or do we still want to have a meeting at the end of the month, curriculum committee, or did we exhaust?
Well, I think there's one other topic that we should talk about, and that's probably class size for elementary, because it's going to come up in finance, and I think there's the bottom line item, but there's also their curriculum, and I think somewhere in the middle there's a
Somewhere,
compromise.
yeah.
I do think we need to start focusing more on the elementary and the middle school. Because we've
Okay.
been just, looking at high school for the most
So
part.
if finance is going to say, we can cut 8 teachers because we can fit 26 kids in the class, because that's what the numbers say, okay. But I want to know from the curriculum side.
Right, I agree.
Sure.
So,
What
and-
our
and,
recommendations?
So is there somewhere in the middle we can meet on this?
So
Yep, I say we have.
those are answers, but they're not necessarily answers to my question,
Yes,
which
we
is
should
should we
have
meet at the
another
end?
one.
We want to have
We should
another
keep
meeting? We
them
want another
another-
meeting? We should keep
another
doing that?
meeting at the end of the month.
Okay.
It was scheduled for the 23rd.
Correct.
Yep, I would say we should.
Okay. I might potentially have a conflict that night, but you guys can run the meeting in the event of my absence. All right. Very good.
Same time.
Same time? No, not the same time. Our regular time was at 6 o'clock, and that'll be here. Maybe we'll be able to end that a little bit early if we're going to have an executive session, but we'll figure that out. So the items we want to discuss, we want to talk about elementary class size.
I think I have a few more things too.
Okay, there was something you sent out by email.
If I may.
Yeah.
Preston, I know you had something with regards to AP, no, it was, you had sent me something.
Generally speaking, I like the high school to keep weighing in with us.
He had AP
base
Human
on
Geography as an offering that you were looking to try to.
Yeah, thank you. All the other things. We would love to be able to get the pilot for AP Human Geography going this ninth grade group, which would be, and I sent you the cost after
Right,
that.
and I can forward that to the group, but maybe that would be a topic for the 23rd if the
Sure.
committee would want that.
Could you get me the framework of the class?
I'm going to send you
What
this piece
exactly
right
is
now.
human geography? Yeah, that's
I
what-
beg your pardon?
Yeah,
Exactly
you can
is
look at the actual,
human
it's
geography.
an
Okay,
AP.
the exact same question from Rich.
We gotta see
Essentially,
that,
and I'll get you the blurb and the literature that goes with it so you guys can be fully informed. But essentially, it takes a look at how humans, ideas, goods move around the world, the interactions of humans. I mean, and they study it at a college level. I mean, all of course are at a college level. So as a former geography major in college, there's a lot of things, everything we all do interchanges with geography.
How the cities developed along the
interesting.
rivers and what effect that river had on the commerce at the time, and things like
It's
that.
not so much historical.
No.
It's more contemporary, and the contemporary issues that are happening around the world in terms of population and pollution and geopolitical unrest and things like that. It's much more along that line.
All right, yeah, we'll include that on the agenda for the next meeting. Any suggestions?
Do you want to just put all the information all together?
Yes.
The stuff that you sent me and then that other information, then I won't send out 2 emails.
Okay,
So,
sure.
okay.
All right, sounds good.
Can I have one last question?
Sure, go ahead.
Obviously, we have some folks here. The conversation is going to go forward tomorrow. I will not be in the district. I'll be working at my previous district for my last 2 days. I'd like to send an email out briefing some information. What are you comfortable with me sending forward? I know there's 4 voting people here, the whole board.
In terms of to staff or?
To staff. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to staff. I mean, I want to be respectful, and I don't want the rumor mill to just start.
Well, I mean, it's
crazy.
all been publicly discussed here.
Yes.
So, and if anybody wants to listen to the tape, I guess that information could get out. Whatever, I would put it, I guess you don't want to overwhelm with information.
Right.
Maybe I'll defer to some of the more experienced managers. I don't know. What information should,
Should hit the website.
Well, yeah, because obviously it's going to be taught. So you
Yeah.
want to nip in the bud
Yeah.
now. And,
well, I think the most important thing we need to push is that this is all for the educational
No question.
benefit
Yeah,
of everyone.
I just want to know if you're comfortable with me sharing.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I know it's
Yeah,
public,
I
but that
do.
this is the direction it's going.
Yeah.
I do,
Okay.
yes.
I think that would be
I'm
benefit. I think that would be better than getting the rumor mill going if we can
I
just say
agree.
this is what's happening.
Based on like the, I guess what, pending.
Pending board
formal
approval.
from
Right.
the board, but,
Okay.
Should he call the paper?
Approval, I mean,
Wouldn't it be
the
nice to
curriculum
call the
committee's
paper?
approved.
Okay.
Should he call the
Well, I
paper?
think we should, at some point, I
Would
think
you
we should
consider
reach out to the media and
calling the
push
paper,
that
let
we're
them know
doing
that you're
these great
exceeding your-
changes.
Do whatever you guys want to do.
I would-
I think before it goes to the paper.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's get some stuff
And you
going.
want me to do
Get it
that
out there now.
presentation similarly,
Pending board
make more
approval,
trim
then
a
you
little
start
bit
in
for
the
the full
good
board?
stuff.
I will send the, I will send the presentation to
We don't have it yet.
Mrs. Torsia to do with what she will.
Okay.
Send to the full team to look at it.
And again, we have a lot of public here from the last meeting, and they're very vocal, so
Yeah.
it's disappointing.
Well, this is,
You know, it's
This is
annoying.
good stuff.
But yeah, these are good moves, so.
So you're going to put it on the website? And
well, what I'm going to do is send it to an Outlook email to the staff, call for a faculty meeting on Tuesday to really present and clarify
Okay,
to them.
okay.
That's what I would like to do. Before we go broader,
Okay.
I think that's probably the first step. And I'm being able to honor the rest of the board,
Yeah.
their thoughts and conversations you guys plan.
You're right.
There are people on the board that are very upset if this goes public before they hear it.
So if you wanted maybe just send an email to the board, just maybe, or I guess maybe
CC the
Mrs.
board on whatever
Torsia.
you're sending out to the teachers?
If you send it
What about
out to the teachers, it's public.
Yeah,
I think the board should hear it first.
maybe just,
No, it's
you know,
internal, it's not public.
No.
well,
It's public.
it'll be public.
Pending board approval.
It's not supposed to
Okay,
be,
wait a
a
minute. I
working
think the committee
document
should
is
make that
not
decision.
supposed to go public.
I think it would be beneficial if maybe just a brief outline could be sent to the
yeah.
board, just saying, hey, guys, be aware, there have been some changes that have been talked about at the curriculum committee. We'd like to take some at the board level. Some things are just administrative changes that don't require board approval. Just a heads up, this information will be shared with the staff, and it will be at that point likely public. I don't know, but I agree with Mr. Martino's statement that the board would probably like, as a whole, to be made aware prior to other stakeholders.
And we can hold back. It's not a no-right,
Unless the
something that's going to go
administrative
out.
changes, like you say, go ahead and make.
Well, no, I mean,
Move forward on
the
that.
administration is doing the right thing in asking the committee. If there's a board issue, I
The
mean,
facilities committee constantly
Yeah.
authorizes.
and board members are welcome to come to these meetings as well.
That's right.
So I think that would be good. Just send an email out to the board
And
saying
then board
attention, yeah. And then you could do the faculty email. That's my advice. I don't know if Mrs. Bites agrees. All right. Is there any public comment?
Ladies?
All right. Well, then, if that's the case, meeting adjourned at 8:05. Thank you, everybody.
You got close.
Yeah.